We were going to try to do a more educated invocation, but you may get a Baptist invocation now. If you bow your heads, please. Most gracious God, brothers, little sisters, and friends gather tonight, not merely to mark the passage of time, but to celebrate a century of purpose. 100 years ago, the foundation of Alpha Eta chapter of Phi Kappa Tau fraternity was laid on this campus by men who believed that the bonds of friendship could be forged into a lifelong brotherhood. Tonight, we stand as the living legacy of their belief. We give thanks for the spirits of those who came before us, the founders who steered Alpha Eta through its earliest decades to make real the Phi Kappa Tau vision of binding men together and challenging us to improve our university and our world, and to live the Phi Kappa Tau mission of championing lifelong brotherhood, learning, ethical leadership, and character. Because of the vision and mission of Phi Kappa Tau, the history of Alpha Eta is woven in the very fabric of this university, our respective communities, and this nation. As we look back on the last 100 years with thanksgiving, let us look forward with a renewed sense of duty and purpose, so that the fire of our fraternal brotherhood continues to burn as brightly in the next century as it does tonight. Finally, may the breaking of this bread here tonight be the immediate gift for our fraternal future. Amen.
Amen.
Very nice. It's right over there somewhere.
Hello, everybody. And now we're moving on and getting this thing rolling. The seeds of this event were planted well over a year ago. Pat McGrath and I have been working with a number of people. One of them who has just put in countless hours of labor and has done so much to make this event work so well is our current chapter president, Beckett Kappa. Beckett, come on up. I asked him if he was named after Samuel Beckett and if his mom was a fan because she liked Shakespeare and the same professor taught both. Here he is, Beckett Kappa.
Hi everyone. Like Jordan said, my name is Beckett Kappa. If you haven't had the opportunity to talk to me yet, I am the current Alpha Eta chapter president, and I just want to thank all of you guys for being here tonight. It's very important. This event would not be possible without alumni being here, so I would like to give you all a round of applause. Give a round of applause for yourself. Now, standing up here, obviously 100 years is a huge feat. It's very monumental, it's historic for our chapter. Not a lot of places nor people could say they've been around for 100 years. And to be up here as chapter president currently is one of the greatest honors of my time here at the University of Florida, and I'm very grateful to be leading us here today. Now, I want to talk about all the things that have happened in the past 100 years. You think about 100 years, there's a lot of history that's happened. There's been a world war. There's been 48 Olympic Games. George Lucas invented Star Wars. Michael Jackson has broken many records. Bitcoin became a currency. a legitimate currency, and the iPhone was also even invented. Yet we still stand here as a fraternity over these past 100 years, and there's a lot of history within these walls. You think about everything that a fraternity stands for: brotherhood, leadership, lifetime commitment, relationships have been formed, ultimately building people like us into better men and just better servants. And that's what a fraternity is meant to be. It's meant to build us up and be better people. I wanted to keep it short and sweet, so that's really all I had to say. I wanted to be concise, but I also want to thank all of you alumni once again for being here. You're here for us. We wouldn't be here for 100 years if it wasn't for you guys. So actives, please take advantage of this moment. Talk to these alumni, build relationships with them, build connections with them. They have a lot of stories to tell as well. And like I said, this event would not be possible. A lot of hours and commitment has gone into this. And I want to give a few thank yous because it takes a lot of people, and it's very nice to see this come to fruition, and I'm very satisfied that you're all here today. So the first people I want to thank, of course, are Patrick McGrath and Jordan Kamenker. Jordan was just up here. This event would not be off the ground at all if it weren't for them, and I'm very grateful for your help. Alumni help is very important, so thank you very much. Another person I want to thank is Matthew Strogach, our former president. I want you to also come up here after I'm done, say your thank yous. I know you want to, but yeah, I want to say thank you to you as well because you laid the foundation of this entire event. Jordan and Pat reached out to you a year ago around this time, and you laid all the foundations. It would not be possible without you as well. And then, of course, I want to thank my amazing executive board. Thank you so much for putting in countless hours, more than you were asked. So thank you very much. And that is really all I have to say. Thank you once again, everyone, for being here. And also, after this, I have to go back to Dance Marathon. So shameless plug, but if you want to donate to Dance Marathon, feel free to come to me, especially as a survivor of childhood cancer myself. It would mean a lot to me. All the proceeds go to UF Shands Children's Research Hospital. So thank you.
Do you understand that he was dancing for hours before we started tonight? And when this is over, he's going to dance for hours and hours again. It's more than 26 hours, isn't it?
Yeah.
Non-stop. So congratulations. We are, in fact, as Beckett indicated, we're going to call an audible. And the audible is that we want to give Matt an opportunity to offer a few remarks based on the work that he did with Pat and me, in the early stages of this. Matt, why don't you come on up and take a moment. There's your mic.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Hope everyone's having a great start to the weekend. Spent a lot of time planning this event, and it really came up faster than any of us could have thought. I know we have quite the program ahead of us, so I also didn't want to take up too much of everybody's time, but I did want to express my gratitude and give a few thank yous to a bunch of people in this room that without them, this event would not be possible, and the state of our chapter today would not be where it is without them. First and foremost, I want to personally thank both Pat McGrath and Jordan Kamenker, who them two and I started playing this event last February 2025, and started from just a visit to here, taking a tour, booking the caterers, going through all the details, and I really can't thank them enough. Had a lot of long summer calls, but I'm glad, everybody was able to come together to celebrate 100 years, so thank you to them very much. And additionally, I want to thank the members of both the Board of Governors and the Housing Corporation. I think that for a lot of the people here who may have not had the opportunity to serve on this chapter's executive board, the members who serve on both the BOG and the Housing Corp, it seems to be a bit of a thankless position. And I would love to express my gratitude because the chapter, again, would not be where it is without all of them who helped me, through my presidency, who helped keep the chapter alive, who ran the entire Capitol campaign for the past 2 years of renovations, which I think look absolutely fantastic for whoever was at the House yesterday. Thank you. Thank you. Specifically, the members of the BOG and the Housing Corporation, I would love to shout them out. Specifically, the president who I worked with, Tom Freeman, president of the Housing Corporation, Jerry Currington, as well as Tom McGurk right here, John Barley over there, current BOG president, Mike DeLeonardo, Marshall Gallup, who spent countless hours at the House working out the renovations, Ralph, who I actually just met yesterday, but always keeping our house in check, absolutely amazing. Craig Rogers, I see over here, who's from the foundation. I've seen him on a bunch of calls. I can go on and on. I must be missing some people, right? But if I didn't say your name, I apologize. But please know, everybody on the BOG, I appreciate greatly. I know at times I may have, been stubborn in a few arguments, but I guess, all part of the fun. But no, thank you all very much. Very much. Thank you. And then just a couple more, and then I'll step down. Just want to thank our reps here from Nationals, Charlie Ball and Alex Haller. Our chapter consultant, Jacob Turner, is not here, as well as Drake Berlin, another person I work to, so thank you to them. In terms of the University of Florida, I spent a lot of time working with the SFL office, who helped me keep the chapter in good standing with the university, keep us above ground, really guided me through any troubles I had. Specifically, who's here today, Reed Robertson, Sarah Lou, thank you guys very much. And thank you guys. Chrissy Johnson, who's also not here, but she was also a very big help, so thank you to her as well. And just, actually, two more thank yous. I'm sorry, but I'm very grateful for a lot of people here. But I want to give a huge, huge thank you to Danielle Logan. Danielle, thank you very much. I needed you very much at times, and I appreciate all your help with any struggles we went through. So thank you very much. Very appreciate you. And lastly, I'm a fall 22. I'm graduating next month. And the friends here I've made are the best friends in my life, who I, will definitely stay in touch until forever. All of my closest boys from my pledge class are sitting at that back table right there. Fall 22, I love to shout them out. So, love you boys. But yeah, just wanted to give those thanks. I appreciate everyone who's had a part in this chapter. We would not be where we are today, and thank you everyone in Phi.
Back when I was a sprout, we didn't really know too much about this here national thing. He's from National. We didn't know what that. I thought it was like a type of cereal. So now we're much more involved. Of course, John Cosgrove started to teach us there is more to National than cereal. And he got in, but he was president of National for a while. And we have several people from National right here in this very room tonight. A couple of them are going to chat with us. One of them is Craig Rogers. And Craig, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but he was actually a champion lacrosse player for UNC way back in the day, and he's still an official. And he finds the time to share his expertise with us as president of the Phi Kappa Tau Foundation, and we're so grateful for his guidance and his help. Craig Rogers, come on up.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I know where my glasses are, James. Right here. Good evening. And it is a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Can you hear me? Yes, you can now. I want to just start by saying thank you. Not as a formality, but something I really mean. I pledged as a Phi Kappa Tau November 9th, 2024. And it's true. I'm still just a youngling, but it means so much to me, and I count every one of you, and I count myself as so lucky to everyone in this room as a brother and a part of my family. Alpha Eta invited the foundation into this process of raising money for this house at a moment when you didn't have to. You had a capital campaign underway, a team of committed alumni doing the work, and enough momentum to see it through on your own. Remarkable people. You chose to bring us in anyway. What you may not have fully realized at the time, and I want you to hear tonight, is how much that decision meant to us and how much it has changed what we are able to do at the foundation. Alpha Eta has been a pilot for the foundation in the best possible sense of the word, not a guinea pig, a partner. I hope that's how y'all see it. You let us learn alongside you, and what we learned here is going to help chapters across the entire fraternity. It started with a conversation that felt honestly a little serendipitous, or maybe a lot serendipitous. Tom called, we started talking, and it became clear very quickly that the challenges Alpha Eta was navigating were not unique to Alpha Eta. Every chapter has this story. What Alpha Eta gave us was a chance to build something in response to that, to take what you were already doing well and figure out how to make it a model. The the C7 Chapter Support Fund, maybe I'm getting into some details that don't mean all that much to you, but if you want to hear more about it, I'll glad to tell you. The partnership structure, the way we've learned to work alongside a local house corporation, none of that existed in its current form before this chapter. You built it with us. And the goal now is to take what we built here and make it available to every Phi Kappa Tau chapter in the country. Alpha Eta Centennial is the beginning of something national. There's that word. Every dollar that flows through the foundation is managed with the same care and accountability we apply to every program we run. You have entrusted us with resources that your brothers worked hard to earn. We do not take that lightly. The two-fund structure, C3 for educational purposes, the C7 for direct chapter support, exists because we wanted to make sure every donor could give in the way that made the most sense for their situation. The partnership that powers it runs three ways: the National Foundation, the National Fraternity, and the individual members of this chapter. When all three aligned, as they are here tonight, remarkable things become possible. The Phi Kappa Tau Foundation intends to be a permanent philanthropic home for the entire national organization. We are the philanthropic home for Phi Kappa Tau, for this chapter and for every chapter. That means we are here for the long term, not just for this campaign, not just for this centennial, for the next 100 years. And I'd be remiss if I didn't do what I do and tell you, if you want to make a legacy gift, we can help you structure it. If you have questions about how to give in a way that works for your situation, tax implications, timing, structure, timing's everything in philanthropy, trust me. We have people, or a person, Charlie, that can answer these questions tonight and after tonight. We are not a transactional relationship. There are no seats, no parking places. It's giving something that fulfills your heart and you expect nothing in return. We are a home. I said at the beginning that Alpha Eta let us learn and grow alongside you. What I didn't say, and what I want to say now, is that something along the way, somewhere along the way, you also let us become part of this. I've gained friends through the process. I've gained brothers. Alpha Eta, congratulations on 100 years, and thank you for making the next 100 years stronger for every chapter that comes after you. And I mean this so sincerely. Good luck tonight, and I'll be cheering for you, and also will be there as we make that graph go over the top. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Craig. I'm grateful for all you and your colleagues do. Next on the docket, we're going to hear from the CEO of Phi Kappa Tau fraternity. This is Matt Arnold. Now, I inquired earlier, oh my gosh, this is Matthew Arnold, the one we had to read about in World Cultures and so forth. He looks remarkably well preserved for like hundreds of years old. No, not that, a different Matthew Arnold, but still worth listening to, and I understand. Look, we need to get this out of the way. We do. We don't want to have any secrets among friends and brothers, and so let's just, I think in his early days, he flirted with an organization known loosely as, shall I say it? ATO. But look, it was something that could be cured. It was something that could be cured. Craig Rogers was not the only man to find real faith in 2024, because that is when Matthew Arnold officially became a Phi Tau with the Beta Chi chapter, and he has so much to share. Let us welcome him to the lectern, the Matt Arnold. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
There you go.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Well, you let that cat out of the bag real early. That's right. Second coming of Matt Arnold, I guess you would say. Good evening, my brothers, the family and friends that are all here gathered tonight. It is a privilege to stand before you tonight, and I humbly serve as your CEO of the national organization. I'm so glad to be here on this historic moment of the 100th anniversary of the Alpha Eta chapter at the University of Florida. 100 years! You know, Beckett was talking about it. He said, he was telling us a little bit of what happened, but you know, in March of 1926, Calvin Coolidge was in the White House. The University of Florida was a fraction of the institution it is today, and a group of determined young men in Gainesville set out to build something that would outlast all of them. They succeeded. The story of Alpha Eta didn't begin just with Phi Kappa Tau. It began with a group of students living together in a boarding house on this campus who decided that after a couple of years, they wanted something more than an informal association. They formed a local fraternity. They were ambitious and they were resourceful. They reached out to Harley Chandler, a mathematics professor here at Florida. He just happened to be a charter member of our Iota chapter at Coe College. And they asked him to be his faculty advisor. I guess you could say the rest is history, because as you go through the history, you find that shortly thereafter, in 1925, they had a visit with one of our founders, Brother Scheidler, and he was so impressed with this group that he went to the Kansas City Convention and said, these guys need a charter. And that's what became this chapter. And it's interesting to know that they did petition, and the charter was granted by mail ballot, but it did carry recommendations from the governor of the state of Florida, the president of the university, every dean, and every national fraternity on this campus. And on March 9th, 1926, 38 chartered members received the charter. And Grand President at the time, Harry Taylor, Grand Secretary Ralph Kirky Bowers, and our honored founder, William Scheidler, himself led the installation of what was Sigma Kappa Phi to become the Alpha Eta chapter. From the beginning, the men of Alpha Eta were builders. They weathered the Great Depression, constructed a chapter house just steps away from the main entrance of campus, went inactive during World War II, but they returned and roared back. Alpha Eta became one of the largest chapters in the entire national fraternity, and at times numbering over 100 men. And their members became student body presidents, leaders on campus, intramural champions, winners of an annual song contest, and over successful. And beyond campus, Alpha Eta brother alumni became attorneys, judges, ministers, journalists, professors, military officers. Man, that's a legacy. And that's the legacy you carry on tonight. 100 years of men who chose Phi Kappa Tau and then went out and proved why. Brothers, I do want to talk to you about why this celebration is more than just history. I want to talk to you about why what happened in this chapter and what continues to happen in this chapter has never been more important than it is right now. We are living in a moment, through a moment, when young men in America are in trouble. The numbers don't lie. According to a Pew Research Center research, about 1 million fewer young men are enrolled in college today than just over a decade. Men now make up only 42% of students at four-year institutions. Universities are scrambling to respond. They're making marketing efforts such as hunting classes and entrepreneurship completions and outdoor adventures to try to lure men back to campus. What they don't realize is that they already have someone that's already prepared to help young men. Those schools don't need clever marketing campaigns to win men back. They really do have partners that are ready and willing to help them out. Fraternities. And when it comes to all the research that's out there, the one thing that's plaguing young men the most is loneliness and mental health. Here's the good news. Fraternity members report higher levels of positive mental health and less depression and anxiety than any of their unaffiliated peers. Nearly 80% of fraternity men report excellent good health and well-being. And when they need help, they are twice as likely to reach out to a fraternity brother than to anyone else. Let me say that again. Twice as likely to reach out to a brother. This is not a social club. This is not a party. That is a lifeline. That is brotherhood doing exactly what it was designed to do. The Wall Street Journal put it this way in 2024. Greek culture stands for patriotism, civility, and camaraderie. And if all colleges endeavor to support and expand Greek life, those values would become far more common on our campuses, not less. Now, you might be thinking, well, Matt, that's great and all, but what does this really have to do about Phi Tau? Why are we talking about this? I'm glad you asked. Because what makes Phi Kappa Tau different is where we started. We didn't start as the most popular group on campus. We started as the opposite. In March of 1906, 4 men at Miami University looked at a system that was built on exclusion and said, we can do better. They organized men who had been shut out. It formed the Non-Fraternity Association, not as protest, but as a promise that every man deserves a community where he can compete, contribute, and grow. That founding story isn't just history, it's prophecy. Because 120 years later, we are living in a moment when millions of young men are shut out again. Not by 3 fraternities at a small Ohio college, but by a culture that doesn't know what to do with them, by a higher education system that's losing them, and by loneliness epidemic that's consuming them. Phi Kappa Tau was built for this moment. And we're answering the call. This fall, we recorded another record recruitment season all across the nation. Our chapter brotherhood is nearing 5,000 men across the country, and we are at probably our highest of average chapter size across the country, and this chapter continues to excel in that area. That growth isn't happening, though, by accident. It's happening because of the work that our undergraduates who are extending the invitation of brotherhood to men who need it. It's happening because alumni volunteers on boards of governors, housing corporations, graduate councils, and other volunteers who support their roles, who are investing their time, their talent, and their experience. It's happening because of the programs that our men are coming to, and they are getting the education they need to not only come back and serve their chapters, but it'll help them for a lifelong commitment. And it's leadership and a strategic plan that is laser focused on ensuring that every chapter of Phi Tau is thriving, a vibrant home for men who are ready to become men of distinction. Brothers, the world needs more of what we offer. It needs communities where men are known by name, where they are held accountable, where someone notices when they're struggling, when they learn to lead not by title but by example, where they're challenged to serve, where they not only just graduate with a degree, but with a brotherhood that lasts a lifetime. Alpha Eta has been doing this for over 100 years. Men who signed that charter back in 1926 could never have imagined what this chapter would become. They couldn't have imagined all of the people and their success that over time have helped to contribute back to this fraternity and this chapter. They were fathers, mentors, businessmen. They went off to war. They came home and built something lasting in their communities. But they could never have imagined a full room of brothers tonight, separated by decades, connecting by something deeper than time. So here's my charge to you tonight. To the undergraduate brothers, you are living, breathing continuation of a story that began 100 years ago. You are the reason this chapter still exists. Never take that lightly. Recruit with purpose. Lead with integrity. Take care of your brothers. And remember, when a man walks through your door for the first time, uncertain and searching for somewhere he belongs, you have the power to change someone's life. Use it. To my alumni brothers, you built this. Your dues, your time, your membership, your example. That is the foundation underneath everything we celebrate tonight. Stay connected. Stay involved. The fraternity our founders started 120 years ago is still being built. And the men building it today could use the reminder of what they were a part of and have always been worth the effort. That's something only you can give to them. And to everyone in this room, be proud of this chapter. Be proud of this fraternity. Be proud in a world where young men are increasingly isolated, disconnected, and adrift. You chose brotherhood. You chose something better. And just like those 38 men did on March 9th, 1926, just like Scheidler, Douglas, Bordell, and Boyd did on a cold Ohio night in 1906, 100 years of Alpha Eta, 100 years of brotherhood at the University of Florida, and here's to the next 100. But before I close tonight, it is my honor, on behalf of the National Fraternity, the National Council, the Executive Office of Staff, and the entire Phi Tau Nation Brotherhood, to present this chapter with a formal proclamation recognizing 100 years of the Alpha Eta chapter at the University of Florida. This document represents the gratitude and admiration of your national fraternity for a century of brotherhood, leadership, and service on campus. From the 38 charter members in 1926 to the men sitting in this room tonight, Alpha Eta has embodied the best of what Phi Kappa Tau stands for. By resolution of the National Council of the Phi Kappa Tau fraternity celebrating Phi Kappa Tau's chapter on its centennial. Whereas the Phi Kappa Tau fraternity was founded upon the principles of good moral character, wholesome living, vigorous thinking, brotherhood, and service. And whereas the chapter of Phi Kappa Tau at the University of Florida has for 100 years faithfully upheld and advanced these principles, shaping generations of men committed to leadership, scholarship, integrity, and lifelong brotherhood. And whereas since its establishment in 1926, the chapter has contributed meaningfully to the University of Florida community, producing distinguished alumni who have excelled in business, public service, military service, education, and countless other fields of endeavor. And whereas through decades of growth, challenge, renewal, and achievement, the chapter has demonstrated resilience, unity, and an unwavering commitment to the mission and ideals of Phi Kappa Tau. And whereas the Centennial celebration provides an extraordinary opportunity to honor the vision of the founding members, recognizing the dedication of alumni and volunteers who have sustained the chapter across generations, celebrate the accomplishments of its undergraduate brothers, and reaffirm a commitment to excellence for the next century. Now, therefore, be it known to all that Phi Kappa Tau fraternity proudly proclaims and celebrates the centennial of its chapter at the University of Florida, honoring 100 years of brotherhood, leadership, service, and expressing confidence in its continued strength and impact for generations to come. Given under our hands and the seal of the Phi Kappa Tau fraternity this 28th day of March 2026. On behalf of all 75,000 living alumni, past and present, and congratulations to Alpha Eta, this is yours. You earned it in Phi.
Matt, thank you. Your remarks were timely, topical, insightful, and meaningful, and so made for the moment. And I think you will be inspired and very encouraged when you hear the remarks of our keynote speaker. I think they are on the same wavelength. Next in our program, we're going to have a Hall of Fame induction, which a number of us are just so excited to see. Our presenters today are Charlie Ball, former national president, and Gerald Currington, about whom more later, but I would say at least this much, I think that more than anyone alive in this room, Jerry is responsible for so many of us being here and being inspired and continuing to be in love with Phi Kappa Tau. Let's welcome both of them, Charlie Ball and Jerry Currington, to recognize Glenn Stern. This is for you. And this is for you. This is for you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight to induct, as I count, now the 11th member of Alpha Eta Chapter into the Hall of Fame. This ties the Centennial together in a certain way, in that one of the original Alpha Eta members of the Hall of Fame, which was started at the fraternity's Centennial 20 years ago, was a man named Richard Irvin, who was later Florida's Attorney General and Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, who was one of the men who signed the charter 100 years ago when Alpha Eta was formed. It's also a pleasure for me to have Jerry Currington help me with this, who is also a member of the Hall of Fame. And he does not know this, but in true Phi Tau fashion, while Jerry has been inducted into the Hall of Fame, I found at the headquarters in Oxford that the plaque that goes along with that had never been presented. So I'm here to right that wrong by presenting you with your Hall of Fame plaque.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Before I tell you a little bit about what I've come to know about tonight's inductee, Jerry is going to talk a little bit about his personal experience with Glenn and how he first came to be a member of Alpha Eta Chapter.
I will be very brief, although I am biased because Glenn is one of my little brothers. And I will be brief talking about Glenn. I'm a bit biased because he is one of my little brothers. And we've all heard that Rush is the lifeblood of a fraternity. I met Glenn by chance at the Wrights Union at the bowling alley for a night of rest and relaxation. And I saw this young freshman, still wet behind the ears. And he was by himself, I think. And I went over and introduced myself. And I says, do you know your roommate, a new stranger? Do you know anybody? I said, he didn't know anybody. I said, you need to come by a fraternity house. Have you ever thought about joining a fraternity? And the rest is history. And we'll get into that. But he's been an incredibly successful businessman. This award has, I guess, as much or more to do with your success as a career, your world experience in the business world, education world, whatever your profession may be, as opposed to, not that Glenn hasn't done it, but your contributions to Phi Tau. So anyway.
Thanks, Jerry.
Oh, I did want to say one thing. He is the poster child. We've all heard the expression, if you get dealt lemons, make lemonade. Glenn is the poster child for making lemonade. He's had a very difficult life, but been a tremendous success. He's written a book called Cancer Set Me Free. And one of his quotes, and I want to read it to you, in his book, and there were a number of quotable quotes, but one of them was, Glenn's goal was to put a smile on someone's face every day. We've all heard the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated and all. And again, Glenn is the poster child for that, and a man of courage and leadership, and we're so fortunate to count him among our numbers.
Thanks, Jerry. It's been a real pleasure to get to know Glenn over this weekend. Before that, I just knew his resume. And we don't have enough time to go through all of the things that Glenn has done in his life. Let me just suffice it to, I'm going to touch on some broad categories, but let me just suffice it to say How many of you have seen the commercial where someone claims to be the most interesting man in the world? Well, I don't think they ever met Glenn Stern. Not only did he have a distinguished military career, 35 years in the Army and Reserves, he's an attorney, an extremely distinguished attorney, practicing in very prestigious firms. He's been an entrepreneur, involved in companies that you've heard of, including WebMD. He's an author, as Jerry alluded, not only of books about health and cancer, but also fiction as well. He's a philanthropist, and not one who just gives money, but someone who becomes a friend and a mentor of the leaders of nonprofit organizations to really make a difference. He's been a teacher. His 18-year cancer survival has really become a part of his life and story and mission. He's been a volunteer, including time as a member of the National Council of the Boy Scouts of America, which is very important to him. On top of all that, he's an incredible photographic artist. And his work is amazing, and he tells us that any sale of that work all goes to support charitable organizations. We learned yesterday that he was one of the people who was a judge in the James Beard Award, and is an incredible cook on top of everything else. If you want to learn more about Glenn Stern, I urge you to go to glensturm.com, where you can find his books and some of his artwork and learn more about his incredible career. So it's my pleasure to introduce Glenn Stern as the newest member of Phi Kappa Tau's Hall of Fame.
This won't take more than about 60 seconds. When you get the phone call from a doctor who tells you you've got cancer, you had no idea it was coming, it changes your life a little bit. But I've learned some rules. One of them Jerry's already talked about, but the first one is we must all give up hope for a better yesterday. Once you've got cancer, you've got it. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. It's going to change how you look at things. But in my first posting on Caring Bridge, which was the start of my first book, I said I was not going to let cancer define me. You know, I didn't know how long I had, and I've beaten all the odds. I'm now at over 6,200 days of oral chemo, over 500 days of IV chemo, and 55 surgeries. And those numbers are just silly, but it's how you approach it and how you go forward. So one of my rules, is put a smile on somebody's face every day. You change lives that way. We have a rule for the companies in the portfolio, and some people follow the rule. I don't know who does and who doesn't. But I ask everybody on their way home from work today, every day, to ask themselves a question. What did I do today to make somebody's life better or their job easier? And if you can get the companies to do that, the success follows very quickly. It's really that simple. And people sometimes will ask me, I've been interviewed on podcasts and broadcasts 40 times in the past 30 days. And they always ask me, how do you do it? And I said, I don't understand the question. What are you supposed to do? You've been dealt a card, And Jerry said, make lemonade out of lemons. Lemonade's great. And take your attitude and fix it and move forward. And just remember how blessed we all are. We're all born in this wonderful country. And when people complain about where I live, there are a lot of wealthy people, they complain all the time. And so I offered to take them on a trip. And they say, where are we going? I said, we're going to do a military trip. They say, you mean like the aircraft carrier trips? I say, yeah, something like that. And as it gets closer to the time, they say, Glenn, where are we going? And I said, we really can't talk about it yet. And they finally, about 5 days out, they asked me, where are we going? I said, well, have you ever heard of Somalia? And they say, yeah. I said, well, you hate this place so much. I hear you bitching about it all the time. I want to show you another place where we've all served. And they just kind of look at me like, you schmuck. And I said, yeah, I am. I'm just giving back what you've given others. You're blessed. We're all blessed to be here. And we should treat other people the way we'd like to be treated. One of the blessings I got was meeting Jerry in bowling. And another blessing was to have James Cunningham as my little brother. And that was one of the greatest blessings of my life. So thank you. I think I've gone about 65 seconds, so we'll stop there. Thanks very much.
Yeah. You want to use mine? Yeah, that'd be great. All right.
Well, we move on to another portion of the program, Alpha Eta History. And here's someone you may not have seen or heard from before, a fellow by the name of the Jerry Currington. So I did tell you about whom more later. Pat and I have discussed this, and we believe that there are two Jerry Currington stories that really need to be revealed to an appreciating public. The first one was when we were pledges and initiation was looming large on the horizon. And a fellow walked in to the living room and he said, well, that was my last class. 4 years. Heck, I made it 5. And never once have the pledges road tripped me. Not once. That was Bob Hollingsworth. Remember Bob Hollingsworth, cheerleader? Yes. Pat and I looked at each other. This can't be. Pat gets the car. We get some pledges. Car rolls out in front. The pledge. Bob is a strong guy. He's chill a bit. But there were enough of us, and we overpowered him, and we got him into the car. But you remember the rules? This is back when road trips were legal. And so you could not road trip just one person. There had to be another brother. And there were more brothers in the room than there were pledges. We weren't going to overpower any brothers. So we asked for volunteers. You guys don't want Bob never to have been road tripped? Does you really want that? Will anybody volunteer? And the brothers are looking at each other. And Jerry Currington speaks up and he says, will you buy the beer? And Pat and I looked, absolutely. And Jerry happily joined us, and we road tripped the two of them to Tallahassee. It gets better because Bob Hollingsworth knew girls in every single city in the United States. And he called the Cayo House, and they got a ride back and beat us back to Gainesville. The other Jerry Currington story is absolutely delightful. He invited newbies. He and John Casey were going to go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. It was 75. Will Powell and I decided to go on board. He said, if anything happens, you got your lawyer, second-year law school. And so, pursuant to the instructions from counsel, we all slept in Audubon Park. And at 3 a.m, the police decided to arrest everyone. They arrested like hundreds of people. They took us all down to the jail, and the fine and the bail were the same. So if you didn't show up for your trial, they just kept your bail and it was okay. That was your fine. We had $50. We had enough to get rid of 2 people. And so Jerry and John get out. Will and I are still in the jail, and they round up the money and they come back a few hours later. Now, I remember this because I am there at the entrance to the jail. I'm on the other side of like these bars. And the guy hands me some papers and he says, here, sign this. And I go, well, what is it? He says, it just says that you haven't been mistreated while you've been here. And I go, well, I don't know. And Jerry goes, sign the papers. I go, counsel from my lawyer, I signed the papers, and we all enjoyed the rest of Mardi Gras. So with that introduction, Jerry, come on over and give us a bit of Alpha Eta history.
You know, when I was asked to give a little bit of history, because I spent 8 good years in Gainesville, so I know a lot of it firsthand. And I started writing a bunch of notes, and they were facts and figures. And I tore all those notes up. I said, this fraternity is about the people. You don't want to need historical data about 1942 or this or that. You don't want to hear a bunch of facts and numbers about in 1942 we did this or we raised this much money or whatever. So I tore it up, and I decided I was going to talk about some people. And a minute ago, you just heard Charlie talk about Richard Irvin. He was one of our founding fathers, a man that I was blessed to get to know personally because he retired in Tallahassee and lived to be, I think, 88 years old. I want to recognize someone, and I didn't want to embarrass him. I think most of you in this room hopefully feel the way I do. I'm a little tired of hearing, this is the first woman president, or this is the first black that, or it's the first Muslim this. I hope we'll be colorblind, and one day we won't have to say it was the first of anything. You know, we will be so diverse. But I did want to recognize our first black member. And by way of introduction, Richard Irvin was Florida Supreme Court Chief Justice. But before that, he was the Attorney General of Florida. And he wrote a brief to the U.S. Supreme Court trying to reverse Brown versus Board of Education, where we had separate but equal education. For the state of Florida, he wrote the brief trying to overturn Brown versus Board of Education. And he succeeded. And that ended segregation in Florida colleges. He's Phi Tau. Alpha Eta, I guess, James, was it 71? 72? 74, okay. You look older. So, James became our first black pledge. But before we did that, we talked to some of our alumni. Most of them were very receptive. But there's one that came to mind who said, if you pledge a black, I'll never give you another dollar. The chapter met, we talked about it, and we wrote back to that alum saying, we don't want your money. And we gave James a bid. So James, please stand up. So Alpha Eta should be proud. We have lots of poster childs. I mean, we have a great history, and that's why I decided to talk about a few people, James being one of them. And we litany, Charlie just started. I mean, we've had the president of the Florida Senate, we've had legislators, cabinet members, and so on. But what captured my attention the most, I guess, was a letter that I'm going to read to you. And you'll have to bear with me. You know, when you're young and you're taught to read, don't move your lips when you're reading and stuff. So I'm not a great public reader, but I want to take you back to basically experience in 1928. We had Russell McCaughan as one of our pledges. He was the founding member of a firm, English, McCaughan and O'Brien in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that became a preeminent law firm in Florida for years. Like so many now, it's been acquired and merged, and I don't even know what the name of the firm they are now. But Russell McCaughan wrote this. I also had the pleasure of getting to know him. Tallahassee has a great retirement home called Westminster Oaks. A lot of you may be familiar with the name. It's a nice Presbyterian establishment, and it's the best senior living in Tallahassee. Both those gentlemen lived in Westminster Oak, which was about 1.5 miles from our home. My wife, Lane, sitting there in the audience. So he wrote me a letter in response to our Century Club invitation, and I want to read it to you. And actually, I'm going to shorten it now because we've heard some of the history that we heard from Matt and Craig. So, but sit and sort of close your eyes as I read this and think this is the year 1928, okay? And this is Russell McCaughan at the age of 88 writing this letter saying, what can I remember from 69 years ago? So bear with me as I read that. It was during Rush Week in the fall of 1927 when I first entered the Phi Tau chapter house at 1353 West Union Street, now Southwest 1st Avenue, Gainesville, Florida. No zip codes back then. That location is 1 block north of the present chapter and about half block east of Southwest 13th Street, then 9th Street. Alpha Eta was a little more than a year old as a chapter of Phi Kappa Tau, so he didn't mention or experience the local chapter before it affiliated with National. And it received its charter in 1926. Said the street was not paved, just cinders. I don't even know what cinders are, but you know, I would have understood dirt or rocks. Let's step inside and see how much I remember after 69 years. The house had a closed telephone booth. It had a sleeping porch and a chapter room. The bathroom is a large open room with a row of lavatories, a row of several showers, a row of toilets, and a single curtain in front of the showers. There were no walls, just ceramic tile and a plastic curtain. There was a sleeping porch, several rows of double-deck beds. Each person had a space for a trunk, a study table, a chair, a closet space, and the number of residents in a room varied based on the size of the room of 3 or 4 brothers. Student residents slept on the sleeping porch so they could be undisturbed as other students went to their desk in their room. This arrangement seemed ideal to us. Now, I hope you brothers, I think we're still the only chapter on the University of Florida campus where we have semi-private baths. You know, you never had to walk down the hall like a dormitory and have 50 toilets, you know. It's a great selling point, I think, and it helps us in our rush. But Russell said, this arrangement seemed ideal to us, the sleeping porch. A person could study in his room whenever he wished without bothering roommates who wanted to sleep, and those who wanted to sleep day or night could do so on the sleeping porch without being disturbed. Residents paid $10 a month to live there, $30 a month for a meal plan. No liquor in the house, no noise during study hours. and no girls except appropriate guests in the parlor. The house manager received his living quarters as compensation, and the dining room manager was responsible for the kitchen, dining room, and food service, received his board as compensation. Meals were good, except that toward the end of the month, when funds might run low, the menu could be a bit lean. Emphasis was placed upon proper attire for the dining room and upon dining etiquette. Now, I'm going to reminisce for a minute because a lot of you weren't around when we had a house mom. We did, for a lot of you in the room here from the 60s and 70s, Mom Starnes, and she would teach us etiquette, and how to, which fork to use and all those sort of things. And it was a great experience, really. And she was sort of like a mom away from home. And it was a great loss when we did away with that. I mean, it's good, all well and good that we now have house directors, and they can be sometimes married couples or a man or whatever. But back then, etiquette was important. All right, so back to his comments. Chapter membership hovered around 35 to 40, and all but a very few living in the house. Military training in the Army Reserve was required of every physically qualified student during his first 2 years. Those brothers that were working to pay their way through school were earning a standard compensation of 35 cents an hour. Only 3 automobiles in the whole chapter house. That was partly because of economics, but also because at that time, few families owned a car. Many had none. Public transportation to and from Gainesville was not so good. And of course, it cost money. The acceptable mode of travel was hitchhiking. On weekends and before holidays, there would be groups of students lining and thumbing rides back to Jacksonville or Orlando. Rat caps were a standard emblem to designate a student regardless of class standing. In later years, it was freshmen had to wear the beanies, but back then, everybody wore a rat cap. Going back to the phone booth, you did not pick a telephone number and press it and dial a number. You took the receiver off the hook. When you heard "number please," you would tell the operator the number you wanted, and she would ring you. Of course, she meant, and it was always a she, she would ring the bell, and on the called phone, there were no area codes. Television had not arrived. There was no phonograph or radio in the parlors. These amenities were not missed because no one was accustomed to them. There would be games at the card tables. Usually it was bridge, sometimes hearts. Of course, now it's risk and bridge and hearts or spades or whatever. Mixed parties were few. There were no co-eds except in the summer school when the chapter house was closed. I do recall a house party that deserves mention. Of course, most girls were imported, and the house turned over to them to live in the house for the weekend. Yeah. There was a debate, hotly contested, whether or not to give the girls privacy, partitioning the toilets. And he closes by saying, if I remember correctly, the partition's lost. So life was different in 1928. But going to my personal note again about people, and I want particularly the students now to appreciate this is a lifelong commitment. It really is. If you had asked me 57 years ago that I would still be seeing brothers that, I learned to love as brothers 57 years ago, yeah, I'd say that's crazy. 57 years. But it's true. And I want to read 2 responses from brothers and how this fraternity changed their lives, I guess. One was from Ray Plato. He was a devoted Century Club donor over many years. and he wrote me in 2019. He says, now that I'm 82 years old, I still have great memories of our fraternity when I traveled to Gainesville as a youngster that had never spent a night away from his parents. I was overwhelmed and about to drop out. Two brothers from Phi Tau helped me stay in school and earn a degree in 1959. The year I lived in the Phi Tau house, the years were great for me. All the brothers and support I got, I am eternally grateful for their part in my life. That was Ray Plato in 2019. A much younger alumnus now, he's with us tonight, Tom Halchek. He wrote, if you have an opportunity to do so, please relate to the current brothers that my experience as a Phi Tau has had an indelible impact on my life, from which I benefit each and every day. I learned many of life's most important lessons as a young and impressionable student at U of F. I developed friendships at Phi Tau that have only grown stronger over the years. I can only surmise that Almighty God himself was smiling down on me the day that I pledged Phi Tau. I am eternally grateful, and yeah, we had a lot of fun in the process. So our history... Our history about the people, but I'm just going to use one or two words to describe some events, and hopefully it'll bring smiles to your faces. Ringing in new pledges on the front stairwell. Sitting in the Phi Tau block at Florida Field when it had steel bleachers in the south end zone, wearing a coat and tie. That's when people snuck coolers into the thing and, were getting drunk and spilling their beer on you, and we're sitting there in coats and ties. Barbecues on the patio before home football games. Pizza and beer at Shakey's Pizza Parlor. The Devil's Mill Hopper. I hope you have still some of these traditions. Devil's Mill Hopper, we had water wars. Everybody wore a t-shirt, and it was the brothers against the pledges. One was assigned blue water, and the other had orange water. And everybody bought water balloons and squirt guns, and yes, a few stolen fire extinguishers. And somebody won, but we all got to drink the keg of beer. Playing Risk and Bridge in the living room throughout the night, throughout finals week. The first draft lottery in the TV room in 1969. Boy, people were drinking, either out of celebration or crying, but they were drinking. Road trips to Hayhira, Georgia. That was the possible destination, more popular destination back then. It was an easy hitchhiking trip back to Gainesville. IFC frolics. Don McLean singing American Pie. Neil Walk, 6'10" Gator, Florida's first All-American pro NBA player, first NBA draft that season. Student riots of 1970, we'll hear more about. I'm almost done here. The Rathskeller. Streaking. I'm looking for Rob Pfluger. Rob, we used to play pinball at the Rathskeller with a terrazzo floor. And Rob thought of this idea about if we put some cooking oil for the popcorn on the floor, you can slide it without tipping. I mean, without not tilting, without tilting. We'd start with 1 quarter, play half the night, and have 100 credits for a quarter. It was ingenious, Rob. Thank you for that invention. How about spring breaks in the Keys, scuba diving with the Barracudas? Plaza of the Americas, Halloween night. That brings some good memories. Remember the body paint? All-night poker games in the study room. What else would you use it for, you know? Intramural sports. Handball. That was long before we had pickleball. Hiking the Appalachian Trail. We heard about the turkey trot and the canoe trip. National conventions. And I'm going to close with Animal House in 1978.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't we all identify one of those, some active brother was on the motorcycle? Anyway, that's it.
And as I indicated before, Jerry supplied so much of the connective tissue that led so many of us to be actively involved for decade after decade after decade. Jerry, we're so grateful to you for that. Thank you. And yes, there were some moments. Tom Halchak in the chess. I was one of the many people he beat in chess. I remember that. And we, by our generation, I think we called them war games. But yes, over at the Spring, and and Jerry mentioned hitchhiking. I could not have afforded to go see my father in Minnesota every summer, except that Jerry taught me it is an art. He taught me and several others in this room how to hitchhike. And you have the sign and you fold it up, Valdosta, Macon, Atlanta. Yes, and I went 5 years in a row. Thank you for that, Jerry. So now we flip a page and we're going to hear from one of the younger fellas, Mr. Vice President Marlon Carey. And Marlon, as he's walking up here, I want you to know that Marlon does, in fact, do more than carry his own weight. Pat and I have worked with him on Zoom session after Zoom session after Zoom session, getting ready for this. And Marlon has always worked very hard. He's been very diligent. What I understand from his colleagues is that, among other things, he planned a very successful, you want me to read this? No, yeah, I'm just kidding. He planned a very successful formal trip to Tennessee, yes. And he planned a day trip to Gasparilla. And he was so immersed in doing fraternity work that he actually had to give a final presentation, a speech, for a class on the bus on one of these road trips. He's standing up there and he's giving the presentation. True story.
What a Zoom blessing is. What a blessing Zoom is.
What a blessing Zoom is. So apparently he follows his own path and he does so with great distinction. It's been a blessing to get to know him. Marlon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. I want to take a moment to reflect a bit. In an ever-changing world where almost everything seems temporary, this brotherhood, and specifically our house, offers something special. It offers us a sense of rootedness, and it offers us a place of continuity. It reminds us that we are part of a story that began long before we arrived and will continue long after we leave. And if there's one lesson this place teaches every man that walks through its doors, it's stewardship. It's the understanding that what we have here doesn't belong to us and us alone. We're simply custodians of it for only a moment in time. This house perhaps is the clearest symbol of that idea. For 84 years, it has stood here, generation after generation of men passing through its doors. Think about that. Every class of brothers has lived here, laughed here, struggled here, celebrated here, and eventually moved on. And yet the house remains, not because of luck, but because of the men who came before us who believed in something larger than themselves. They believed in taking care of something that may never personally benefit them. Recently, all of our alumni here today have demonstrated that belief in the most powerful way possible. They've invested over $1.4 million and counting in renovations to renovate and restore our house, not for themselves, but for us. And more importantly, for the generations of brothers who have yet to even arrive. And this is one of the most important lessons a man can learn. It's stewardship. It's truly caring about something this much. Because being a man is not about what you take from the world. It's about what you protect. It's about what you build. And it's about what you choose to leave better than you found it. Your home, your friends, your families, and your community. Greek life at its finest teaches us exactly that. It teaches us loyalty, it teaches us responsibility, and it teaches us that brotherhood isn't just about the time and the few short years that we spend here. It's about the obligation that you carry long after you leave. There's an old saying that civilization is when old men plant trees for whose shade they will not enjoy. And tonight, as we celebrate here the 100th year of Alpha Eta at the University of Florida, we are sitting in the shade of those very trees. Trees planted by men who believed in this brotherhood long before we ever arrived. And to that, I say thank you. And it wouldn't be a Marlon speech if I only came up here and just said thank you. So this is a perfect opportunity today that I realized one of the requirements as the vice president of this year chapter, per the bylaws, is to release a newsletter to our here alumni. Recently, in decades past, it's always been an email, a Facebook post, or some combination of both. But today I want to take the opportunity to show what I've been working on in terms of how I want to revamp that and actually get us physical newspapers sent to all of our alumni. Since you clearly care this much, you traveled, it is the least that we can do for you all. Passing out right now are copies of our preliminary copy of our brand new alumni newsletter. And as I make my rounds to each table today, I hope to hear all of your feedback, concerns, and stories that you're able to share that I can put in this newsletter. So thank you for that. And to all of our brothers here, I have a special announcement today. As everyone knows, a centerpiece of my agenda as vice president has been to renovate our chapter room to make it more into a gentleman's club style. And I'm here to announce the centerpiece of that has been secured. We are now going to be getting a Phi Tall executive style pool table confirmed for our very own chapter room. That will be a centerpiece of our rush agenda come 2026, come August and summer. And I want to thank everyone for this time. I appreciate it. Thank you all for everyone who traveled here today. I appreciate it, seeing some familiar faces, seeing some new ones, and getting to hear everyone's stories. Thank you all.
Marlon. Were you going to pass on to the video?
Oh, yeah, how could I forget? Oh my goodness. We have a very special video today. Produced, directed, and designed by our very own Andrew Colon. If you can find your nearest TV, it will be played in the next minute or two. And for that, we're going to give it up to Mr. Colon for this amazing video. Thank you.
responsibility and a privilege passed down from one generation to the next. Things always needed fixing, but for a while now it's been different. It's about replacing more than just fixing and joining the 21st century. The original house got us to 100 years. The new house takes us into the next 100. To house us, feed us, help boys become men, help them to make lifetime memories like it did for you and for me. Let's look at some of the transformations that duty, stewardship, generosity, and commitment have already made possible. There's a long way to go, but with your generosity of time, money, and effort, the chapter house of Alpha Eta of Phi Kappa Tau at the University of Florida will thrive for many, many years to come. Are you going far?
Nice work. Let's give him a hand. Yes. So proud of these guys. They're doing a great job. Well, it just wouldn't be the same unless we had a few words from the Little Sisters of the Laurel. We've got several Laureltarians here in this very room tonight, and we're going to hear from two of them. We will hear from Marianne Pasha, who'd already been with the fraternity for a couple of years when Pat and I made our debut. And here's a woman, Chi Omega, who was, I don't know if you know that this is how we remember you, Marianne, but consistently, unremittingly, constantly sweet and effervescent and kind and friendly, that was Marianne. Come on up.
I have a team.
You have a team.
Thank you. Now you talk about some lifelong friendships. My little brothers, John Snedeker and Dave Hensler. Well, I had prepared a lengthy flashback to the 70s, and I mean flashback. But when I heard that Tom Halachek was going to speak shortly after me, I started editing, and because I knew he was going to cover it all. But I do have a couple of thoughts. Gainesville in the 70s was a movable feast of contrasts, social movements, and characters. That, well, you had to be there. It was a long time ago. Like I said, we've been friends for over 50 years, right? So there was a lot going on. The Vietnam War ended by 1973, and veterans were coming back to the University of Florida, which was a conflicted campus. for a while. Title IX was signed in 1972, and the proposed Equal Rights Amendment galvanized the women's movement at that time. The 70s was kind of an interesting time for something like the Little Sisters program to work. On paper, the Little Sisters program could have been read like some kind of gender-based holdover from the past, a little out of place in the rock and liberated 70s. But in reality, the Phi Tau vibe at Florida was more like that of an extended family, with everyone on equal footing, an inclusive atmosphere with a mutual and mindful effort to make everyone feel welcome and involved. A student organization doesn't last 100 years just by taking up space. An organization lasts 100 years because it meant something to the members long after graduation. It was worth it. While the Little Sister program, Barbarian, and other things that Tom is going to talk about, and other features of the 70s are now gone, Phi Kappa Tau has survived social and cultural change by building on the organization's principles of brotherhood, leadership, learning, character, and service. Phi Tau brought us together as brothers and sisters in the 70s, and it has brought us back together today. That's because we value the time we all shared growing up together in that Phi Tau family of brothers and sisters so long ago. It was worth it. Thanks, and congratulations on the Centennial. We have a great future ahead of us in this organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. I'm feeling kind of bad because I wanted those guys to help me and they didn't. But wait, there's more. There's always more. We are going to be represented now by the early 90s. By that time, several of us had gone down the road, but based on detailed research that Pat and I did, we understand that this particular little sister, the last to be initiated into the Little Sisters of the Laurel, but folks, absolutely, positively, undeniably, and most reliably, not the least. Let's welcome Ann Covington.
Well, like Mary Ann said, by the 90s, the Little Sister program was still seen by the UF administration as sexist and degrading to women. And they ended the program campus-wide. But as Little Sisters, we attended Barbarian and Reggae Moon Splash. We ate our meals at the house on senior privileges. We played intramurals in the Little Sister League, cheered on the pledges at Taw Bowl, and all those who participated in the Run for Those Who Can't. Some of us were fortunate enough to be serenaded at pizza and beer, hearing all of the things that reminded you of us. I can neither confirm nor deny that a little sister climbed out on the window ledge to try and enter Ken Nanny's room during Barbarian, but had to settle for hanging a pig's head in his shower upon discovering all his windows on the second floor were locked. We had a great time auctioning ourselves off to the brothers for dates, picnics, or cleaning services. And we raised money for pledged tea parties. This was one of my favorite events, and the brothers would hype it up. Oh man, I'm glad I'm not a pledge. I can't believe they're letting us get away with this. We would be in so much trouble if we got caught. And the pledges were gathered and yelled at, and then the doors were sprung open to reveal a room full of women, and the few brothers that were there served as bartenders for Long Island iced teas for our tea parties. Now, in the rush to handle all of the event details, I burst into Paul Shirley's room, said, "Paul, you're 21, right? Can you take me to buy the liquor?" And Paul very calmly turned to the gentleman sitting next to him and introduced me as the guest from Nationals. And when my car had the batteries stolen at the caves an hour west of campus, someone answered the house phone at 3 a.m. and drove an hour to pick me up along with Joe Hernandez, Dave Boardman, and Pedro Miranda. But that was Phi-Tau. As a little sister, I had an instant family of big brothers. That did make it hard to get a date, because anytime I was out, I could count on a Phi-Tau appearing to hassle the guy I was talking to. But despite what the university thought, we were never less than. We were family. And I know that's as true today as it was 30 years ago, as it was 50 years ago. So to all of my brothers, thank you for everything, for being there for me then and now.
That was wonderful. We've got one more audible. One of the things we've noticed over the passage of time is that many of our tribe have served in the armed forces. And I'd like to recognize them. Those who've served in the armed forces, would you please stand up, please? Thank you so much for your service. We've had Leonard Chapman, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. We've also had Brother Jackie Snedeker. And when he was just a young'un, my gosh, when was this? This is like very early 90s. He sent a letter to folks in the, here it is. I guess I ought to use my glasses too. James, are these yours? No, they seem to work for me. I've been in the Red Sea since August on board the USS Saratoga. I'm a bombardier navigator, BIN, flying in an A6E Intruder. We're on our way to Israel for Christmas and then Turkey for New Year's, before returning back to the Red Sea in early 1991. Hope you're having a joyous Christmas season. All my best to you for a Happy New Year 1991. P.S. Does Phi Kappa Tau have any chapters or colonies in Baghdad? Better move them out prior to any U.S. Navy renovations.
Good evening, brothers, little sisters, friends, and guests. I'm John Snedeker, call sign Sneds, also known as Jackie. This is a surprise. I was just looking at this here, but I always come prepared with a speech.
Who knew?
So I have a long version and a short version. So, show of hands, how many people want the long version? Okay, how many people want the short version? All right, long version wins. All right, here we go. Actually, I don't have a speech, I just have a sea story. A couple of weeks after this was written, this was December of 1990, and those of you remember Desert Shield, which was the protective buildup after Saddam Hussein had invaded Kuwait in 1990. But little did we know, within 2 weeks, it would turn to Desert Storm. And as Jordan said, I was on the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga, and we were in the Red Sea. And so on January 16th, 1991, at midnight, the USS Saratoga turned into the wind and started launching its strike. 60 aircraft, all going after Saddam's forces. And so I sat on the blackened flight deck waiting my turn. A lot of thoughts are going through. Most of them were all process, procedures, targets, threats, everything like that. But then in the background, family, friends, and brotherhood. Because I remembered my pledge class, my fraternity, and I remembered that loyalty. And when it was my turn to launch on the carrier, you were all in the cockpit with me. And so when you do carrier ops at night, you taxi up, it's your turn on the catapult, it's 100 feet till the end of the carrier, and in theory you should be flying. And so they attach you up to this steam mechanism, and it fires up, and when it's your turn, you turn your lights on, they touch a wand to the deck, and a few seconds later you go from 0 to 150 miles an hour in about 3 seconds. Daytime, it's thrilling. At nighttime, it's like getting shot into a dark closet. It's thrilling. I've done 1,000 of them, and I never got comfortable with it. But you were with me, and that was a sense of warmth. So I want to thank you for that moment. And I'll just tell you, when I did come home and I got a lot of letters from you all, I will always remember those. But like a good naval aviator, you keep your eyes on what's in close, but you also look at the horizon. And what I see here tonight is a beautiful thing. But when we were taking the photos and they did the different year groups, and I saw the youngest year group, the present day, I was stunned and I was overjoyed because I can see that Phi Kappa Tau has a great future. Thank you very much and good evening.
Thank you, John. Well, now we're going to have some reflections over the decades from a representative of each. And we're going to start with the honorable, the enjoyable, the delightful. We're going to start with Randy Green. And Randy, I think, as we're getting ready for this, Randy remembers something about my initiation where it might have been a little rough. I don't remember that. What I do remember is shortly after that, when I was getting very active in the chapter, Randy dispensing some really, really valuable wisdom. Like Marianne and Ann said, it's a family, and Randy's part of this family and was for me. So come on up, Randy. He's going to tell us about the 60s. One other thing. May I see this for a moment? We have some of the finest legal minds in the room. Jerry worked for the Attorney General and so forth. And because Craig and Matt were not actually, they didn't become Alpha Eta, you are going to stay afterwards. You have not yet been paddled. So
I've got one. Is this one working? I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you so much. I particularly like following James Cunningham. It's like following Martin Luther King, in a speech. But he was like that when he was a freshman. He would do these talks and it'd be like, how's that even possible? How did that even happen? So he's an amazing orator. I wish I could speak like James Cunningham. But anyway, Pat gave us, there are 5 of us who are going to do the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Pat gave us a lot of instructions about a lot of instructions as to what he wanted us to say, and he gave us each 3 minutes to say it. So I'm going to get on with it. So I was feeling really good about this weekend until I realized that I'm 59% of the 100 years of this anniversary. So and look at me. You know? That's not even possible. So When I joined Phi Tau in '67, my father was a Phi Tau in the '40s. He was the treasurer of Phi Tau in the '40s, right after the house had been built. So I was a legacy. They kind of had to take me, I guess. But I graduated from Gainesville High School and went through Rush. I went to the Pikes. I went to the Sigma News and ended up at the Phi Taus, and thank God I did. So 59 years ago, I pledged Phi Tau. The house was on the verge of extinction. Literally. There were 34 brothers on the meet sheet, all of whom beat the crap out of me with this paddle, by the way. 34 brothers on the meet sheet, and 70% of them were seniors. So they had not rushed a real pledge class in about 3 or 4 years. I don't know what they thought was going to happen. Our pledge class was 25 or 26, and we were an even match for the brothers. Initiation was not fun. We had to get everyone to sign our paddle. Every one of them beat the crap out of us. Jack Harkness, who became the president of the Merit Florida Bar Association, beat me every week just for the fun of it. We had, Halchek has a chipper on his paddle. We spent our whole time in initiation chipping tiles, push-ups, sit-ups. We got no sleep. I was a National Merit Scholar at Gainesville High School. I won the Pledge Scholarship Award that fall with a 2.7 grade point average. True story. National Merit Scholar, 2.7 grade point average. We got no sleep at all. Ted Rimley let me take a nap in his apartment like for 2 hours, 2 days during initiation. And that was pretty much all the sleep we got. We lost about 5 pledges during initiation. I know this is not like this now, thank God for you guys, but it was not fun. Road trip. One night, I was a pledge class president. I ran against John Cosgrove. That was the only election John Cosgrove ever lost. So I was the pledge class president. I was the leader. We outnumbered the brothers living in the house. There were 20 brothers living in the house. There were 25 of us. We would lock them out of the house. We did this a couple times, and then they would retaliate when they got back in the house. One night, we're having dinner, and Mom Starnes is at the head table. Jim West is the cook in the dining room. We had these really nice dinners. They stripped me naked, took me across the street, put me in an elevator in an apartment building, and Sue Kinsey rescued me. I knew she was living there. I went up, I knocked on her door. I'm stark naked. She gave me a towel, and I got back into the fraternity house. But that was their sense of humor. They thought that was fun. Anyway, we finally got through initiation. No sleep. It got better after that. So it could hardly have gotten worse. We had great parties. I've been a Phi Tau for a long time. We had great parties. Mike Mastandria, Paul Register, who has passed on, and I would play bridge with Mom Starnes once a week when she was still our house mother. We had little sisters over once a week who were wonderful. Mike and I watched Jeopardy. We skipped class every day at noon and watched Jeopardy. We were experts on Jeopardy. I was the pool champion that year. Played a lot of basketball. We had continuous poker games going. So you couldn't go to class because you're right in the middle of a poker game, right? So it was really interesting. So Phi Tau back then was a political, because of John Cosgrove, Jerry Currington, Randy Williams, was a political powerhouse for the size of our fraternity. We rocked. We had more Blue Key members. We ran IFC, we ran the Rathskeller, we ran pretty much everything that made money. And it was incredible. John Cosgrove, I'm going to talk about him in just a minute, but he was the most amazing person I've ever met. He ran the University of Florida. He really did. And he ran the State House of Representatives for 20 plus years. So he was my dear friend and my mentor, and we all owe a lot to John Cosgrove. Another person we owe a lot to is Randy Williams. Randy Williams was a helicopter pilot. All of you probably know this. He was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam during the war. He got shot down twice, came back to the University of Florida. I got out of the Army about the same time he did, and I didn't have a place to live, so he let me move in with him, Charlie Frock, and Lamar Sawyer, who was the major, what do you call that guy? Drum major for the band. And they only had 3 bedrooms, so I had a room with Randy Williams. Randy Williams was hardcore, just back from Vietnam, just starting law school. He was a man. I was like a baby. And he'd go out almost every night to the bars, and every other night he would bring somebody home, so I'd have to sleep on the couch in the living room. But he was a true hero, and he was a political powerhouse, became the president of Florida Blue Key. He and John and Jerry, I mean, they paved the way. I don't know how many, I saw a ton of Blue Key people, more than I thought we had, but he got so many of us into Blue Key. He got so many of us into leadership positions. I got to be president of the fraternity in 1972. I ran homecoming in 1972, ODK, So I learned all the leadership skills that I might have had in my career through Phi Tau. And it's been the most incredible experience. I want to give a tribute to John and Rick Nutter and Randy Williams. So Rick Nutter is president of the fraternity, my best friend. He and Jerry used to hitchhike across the country. They'd leave and I'd be like, are you crazy? You're going to hitchhike? This was in like 1972 or whatever it was. Anyway, Rick was an amazing guy, wonderful, wonderful brother, president, had 4 great kids. He had 3 different bouts of glioma, brain cancer, and incredible treatments. I'd fly out to Dallas. He was living in Dallas. He had a successful career. He made millions of dollars in Dallas in the real estate development business. He had 4 surgeries on his brain, and the last one basically killed him. But I miss Rick. And then Randy Williams, my roommate. All of you heard about the Randy Williams Awards, and who's my other one? Oh, Jerry. Jerry's already done enough talking, and so everybody knows how wonderful he is, but he has been the most steadfast Phi Tau for the last 50 years. And I love you, brother. Oh, wait, one more thing.
Story about Conroe.
I know, too bad. One more thing. Jordan, in your initiation, I've never gotten over this, but the pledges were standing along the wall. I was screaming and yelling at you, and I pushed your head and almost knocked you out. So I'm so sorry. I've never gotten over it. I hope you can forgive me.
You're forgiven. I don't remember it. All righty then. Our next speaker come to talk to us about the 70s is Tom Halchek, about whom a few comments earlier. I have one last observation as he ascends to the stage. One of the things that you know about someone that it warms you. When we stopped going on the canoed, we started camping out the Currington estate. 4 days, 3 nights, but we're not out of the canoes all the time. And the last time we were there, I think, you brought some sons.
Yeah.
And they turned out to be such fine young men. You did well, my friend.
So as you know, my name is Tom Halchak, but you can call me Zeke. And my good friend and dear roommate, Chris DePetto, you can call him Zeke too. Not Zeke too, but Zeke also. This is a pretty tough act to follow, I gotta say. made some notes this afternoon. I've been going over in my mind for the past few days what I wanted to say. And on the one hand, it's comforting to know that so many people have echoed my thoughts. Jerry, I don't know, I can't believe you saved that letter. Maybe a little overkill there, you know? But, and I'm glad that this has kind of devolved into a little bit of a comedy routine because I think we're getting a little too serious there for a while. So I'll tell you a little my story. I grew up in upstate New York, little town called Hurleyville, population 500. Did you read the letter, Jerry, about the picking up the phone and getting the operator? That's what I grew up in. We didn't have dial phones in the town that I grew up in until about 1970. My parents put me on a plane. I landed in Gainesville. We had a family friend that was in law school at the time. He picked me up at the airport, dropped me off at my dorm, which was right over here, Murphy J. Opened up the trunk, took out my suitcases, says, "Good luck," and he drove off. I went upstairs. By the grace of God, my roommate was in the room, and he asked me if I'd been to the offices to get my keys, and I was like, "What do I know? Office keys? What do I had no clue." If he wasn't in that room, I'd still be standing outside of that dorm today. So I get settled in my dorm room, and classes weren't starting for a few days, and I think a day or two after I came onto campus, somebody said to me, "Hey, do you want to go to a fraternity party?" I didn't even know what a fraternity was. I thought it was like Glee Club. We were going to sing songs or something, you know. So, meet us outside in the corner at 5 o'clock. Someone's going to pick you up. First Phi I ever met, Mr. John Kinsey, sitting over here. Picked me up in this little, was it a Ford Fairlane? Is that what it was? Ford Galaxy. I thought I was in, what was that movie? American Graffiti, you know, some old sled bucket. Takes me to the fraternity house, and I meet a bunch of great guys. And they were very clever because they got me talking about my favorite subject. They asked me about me. And then they shut up and they listened, and I talked forever. And then they asked me, "Hey, do you want to come back tomorrow night?" And I said, "Why not? You guys are brilliant conversationalists, so why wouldn't I?" So I go back the next night, and a couple of them take me upstairs in one of the rooms, and they say, "Well, last night after everybody left, all the brothers got together, we had a meeting, and we took a vote, and it was unanimous. We want you to be one of us." And I said, "Sounds good. I'm in." And that's how I became a Phi Tau. And I think that's probably true for a lot of you here, you know. Glenn Sturm was one of my pledge brothers. We have 4 pledge brothers from that class: Chris DePetto, Andy Stein, Glenn Sturm, and myself. So I'll tell a few little stories about some of the people you've already talked about, or have already spoken this evening, and their names have been mentioned. Glenn and I got road tripped one night as when we were pledges, along with 2 other pledge mates, Max Willower and Mark Harrison. They burst into my room in the middle of the night, put a hood over my head, and took us off into the wilderness. They wound up dropping us off at the Mill Hopper. I had no idea where we were. Glenn fortunately figured it out. We walked for miles and miles. We finally found pavement, and we found our way back to campus. And Randy Green had a little Subaru car. This is a tiny little car, smaller than a Volkswagen Beetle, like one of those smart cars they have now. And he'd lost the keys to his car. So he couldn't lock it, because if he did, he wouldn't be able to get back in. So as our retaliation, we took his car, we rolled it up to sidewalk, lifted it up, put it up on the veranda, rolled it down the veranda, lifted it up, turned it sideways, and parked it in the living room.
That's great.
So, Glenn Stern, Hall of Fame. You know, I'm this close. I could be Glenn Stern. And you know, I've learned a lot tonight that I didn't know before I got here. James Cunningham is black? Why didn't anybody ever tell me before? Anyhow, I'm getting a little off subject here. I did make some notes, but most of you have already stolen my material. Okay. Oh, here's a good one for you. Vietnam War. In the winter pledge class of 1974, we had a whole bunch of guys pledged to fraternity. They were all returning from the Vietnam. They were all 24-year-old guys pledging to fraternity. Was that a bad influence on us? Holy mackerel. It's amazing we lived through that. Do we still have Barbarian? Is Barbarian Party still active? Brothers, we still have Barbarian? Gone? No more Barbarian? Oh, Lord in heaven. Oasis? What is that? So Randy was going to talk a little bit about the student riots. There were student riots in 70 and 71. When I got there in 72, we didn't have any riots, and nor did we have a house mother. So I think that the standards were relaxed a bit. I think the university police were just happy that we weren't rioting, so they let us pretty much do anything. We had a live band party at every home football game. We had live band parties 2 or 3 times for each quarter. We had a blast. It was just like, we're like kids in candy stores. But you know, the Phi Tau Creed being what it is, and the mission statement being what it is, there were some brothers that were older and wiser, and they kind of kept us from getting in too much trouble. But it was a hell of a ride, wasn't it, Marianne? Anyway. There's so much more that I could say, to be honest with you. Everybody else has promised to keep it short. They're all liars. Oh, I do want to talk about canoe just a little bit. For those of you who have heard about the canoe trip, it's hard to overstate the importance of that tradition. And you underclassmen, graduates, or active brothers, please pay attention, because the canoe trip is really what kept us close for the last 50 years. It started in 1974. Jerry Currington, Rick Nutter, who was my big brother, Eric Palmer, who's here tonight, and also John Cosgrove. In July 4th weekend of 1974, they took a trip down the Suwannee River, 4-day trip. They put in at Route 6 in Jasper. They get out at White Springs. And the following year, they invited some more people, and then the next year, they invited some more people. And for probably about, 30 years, Jerry, never missed a year. Now, I didn't participate in the first handful of canoe trips, but somewhere in the early 80s, I started going. And we look forward to it every year. It was just an amazing, amazing trip. You talk about a well-oiled machine. Every guy knew exactly what to do, what was expected of them. No arguments, nobody who failed to carry their weight. It was just an amazing experience. We kept doing it for probably as long as we could, until the demands of family and business and life made it a little more difficult. We haven't had a canoe trip now, in about 5 or 6 years? I did a video 15 years ago. If you just go onto YouTube and search under my name, and Swanee River trip, you'll find a video. It's been up there for 16 years now. It'll give you a sense of what was so special about that trip. Because when we got together, we didn't just get together to talk about the memories from when we were in school. We were creating more memories. We kept on creating memories. And the bond that we feel, there's a core group of about 20 people in here that have been on the canoe trip, Jordan being one of them, Pat, all you guys. The camaraderie that we developed from going on this trip is impossible to overstate. And I would like to see us have another canoe trip and get some of the younger guys to help us carry all that heavy stuff we gotta haul around. Anyway, I'm not gonna stay up here much longer. I'm rambling a little bit. The Phi Tau fraternity has meant so much to me. It's made me what I am today, whatever that is, for better or worse. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak with you folks tonight. I look forward to meeting everybody. And Jordan and Pat, thank you very much for all the work you've done putting this together.
My pleasure. Like Tom said, we're doing in 3-minute segments. So Pat told me, I was so excited. He says, "You know who we got for the 80s?" I said, "Who?" He said, "Mike DeLeonardo." And I said, "Oh my gosh." I loved him in Titanic. It was like, this is incredible. I didn't even know he was a fighter. He said, "No, that's DiCaprio." Oh, okay. We still love you. Mike DeLeonardo, come on up.
You said what everyone else said. Who the hell is that? I'm going 3 minutes. I got my timer. All right. So it's so great. Why am I here? I don't even know. It's really an honor to be here at the 101st anniversary celebration. But I did take a note or two while I was sitting over there. Good Lord, ran out of ink. So when I was an undergrad in '85, which is a million years ago, Jerry Currington was a name. Like, nobody saw Jerry Currington. He was just he was a name you used to scare people into paying their bills. We're gonna call Jerry, and not call Jerry. And like, who's Jerry? He's the oldest man in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And now I'm younger than he was. I mean, I'm older than he was back then, and he looks better than I do, except not really. Just kidding. I'd really like to thank it was really nice to see Marlon. I'd like to thank Marlon's debate coach too. That was absolutely tremendous. Although I was so excited when he talked about Gentlemen's Club, and I'm like, yeah, and he said the centerpiece. I'm like, no, it's not a pole. Okay, so that's not a Gentlemen's Club. That's a pool hall, Mr. Marlon. You'll learn a thing or two. Let's do this. I'm gonna get real serious for a second. We are 17 hours into this, and not one of us has raised a glass to Big Dave Myers. Let's give a toast to Dave Myers. Absolutely. Yes, stand up. An unbelievable human being. Everyone in this room who has met him in life is better because of him. Dave Myers, forever.
Right.
And all the fallen brothers, I know we're going to do that later, so I want to make sure he did this. When I entered, you're not going to hear about my story. You don't care about my story. When I entered in '85, I got the feeling that really the '80s started in kind of '82. You know, there's been some understanding of some struggling, and they maybe found their footing, but really we're growing legs in that great class of '82. You're going to hear some fantastic '82s here. And I was a few years after that, and I really think that the humble brag on the '80s. I really, the unfortunate passing of Scott Littman, which got Joel Main and Andy Colon and Tom Freeman and I, and reaching out to people and really kind of reinvigorated this idea of this connection and that we had lost because of this fantastic invention of Facebook, allowed us to connect with each other. But when I joined Phi Tau then, really Phi Tau was known Florida Blue Key, obviously. If that machine could make me a key, then that's it. I smoked pot and drew pictures. That's what I did. And look, I'm a key. How about that? And athletics, believe it or not, if you look at it, you're like, really? Really? We were athletics. And I'm glad we mentioned grades because it wasn't grades for sure. I was a pledge scholar also with a 2.7. So that's it. Also, for me, the 80s is Wild Bill Switowski. So those of you who know Wild Bill, he's not passed or anything. He's just freaking amazing. And he's just disappeared. I don't know what's happened to him. So I cannot believe some of you telling these stories. National's sitting right there, right? I'm Italian. I know there are things you say and things you imply. It's called omerta. You need to, like, people with vowels on the end of your last name. Tell the people around you about all that, right? You don't say these things. So, yeah, I wish Syracuse was here. He's kind of Italian. He's Sicilian. That's sort of like that. So, you mentioned road trips. That's kidnapping. That's a crime. Okay? So I'm definitely not going to talk about that. Okay? You mentioned Barbarian. Do you know the things we did in Barbarian? You asked them, do they do Barbarian? No, they don't do Barbarian anymore. Oh my gosh. Paper macheing the inside of the house to look like a cave, and a yard of fabric to create 2 costumes, and grain alcohol, and maybe some Kool-Aid packet waved near it like that. I'm definitely not talking about that. Okay, so we also had all these dresses. Like, some of you know I'm a teacher, and I'm that teacher. A lot of schools have the clown, and I do that. And how that happen? In high school, I wasn't in the same zip code as a school activity. Smoking pot and drawing pictures, not really conducive. But things like transvestite parties, we had those. We had an uncomfortably a lot of those things, right? Thank you, Flash Photo, for bringing that up. None of us can run for office except for the mayor of the village of Wellington. That's there's only one office a village has, and it ain't the mayor. So yeah, I became very comfortable in heels. Somebody else mentioned war games. What's wrong with the war games? And the spraying, I guess it's just capture the flag, really, right, with the keg. But maybe some overnight activities. But stealing a fire extinguisher felony, right? None of us ever did that. We certainly did not stick them in the attic and then filled them with all kinds of disgusting, awful things, like stuff that comes out of your body, things that should never have been in your body in the first place, and then to ferment in the attic, and then there was this one ATO that climbed over the fence and thought he was going to get handsy with us, and he got sent back over with giant yellow chunks of her. But we're not talking about that guy, for damn sure. Okay, and then you mentioned, so wonderful story about Desert Shield, and Tom and I were talking yesterday about Grover Knowles, and Grover Knowles, Lieutenant Knowles, was on TV at Desert Shield. The first city that was liberated by Grover Knowles, a fighter from the 80s, by his unit, whatever it's called. I got the haircut, but I wasn't in service. But that was Grover. But we know Grover as this crazy guy who could climb anything, like human Spider-Man. And so perhaps, maybe when you get your group tickets and you go into the stadium, and we knew where our tickets were the night before, and you get tourists coming in, make sure that you don't bring any alcohol. Grover could climb into the stadium with bottles taped. I mean, this guy I heard about would tap, and he would, and then tape them under the seats. You're like, I got no liquor, come on, what you got, right? I'm just gonna give me a Coke, and then you get under your seat, and you're like, whoop, hello, Mr. Jack Daniels. And so, that's terrible, and you should not know about that. So we're not talking about that. And then a couple weeks ago, I came to a game called GAC. You guys, actives, you doing GAC? That's pretty right. That's awesome. And then somebody else mentioned pizza and beer. Hell yeah. So, and I'm like, oh, there's pizza and there's beer involved. So, right, there's songs, right? You're saying that, like, no, we play games. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. UF is a nerd school now. Like, when I was here, we were right on the edge. Like, I was right when it started getting a little harder. And so the people after me cared about staying in college. The people before me just wanted to scrapbook and go graduate from FAU. So, but GAC was kind of cool. It's like this thing like this. But I go, okay, songs. I'm like, so nothing about a wheel? Nothing about AOPI and some digits there? Nothing about a cart? You guys are all singing them in your heads right now, right? Right? Oh, my daddy was a carpenter. But anyway, glass blower. Those are not politically correct, so we will not be singing those at this time. And then I thought that the Run for Those Who Can't was an 80s thing. Apparently, that tradition, you're not neither is for me, but those of you who don't know, there was a statistics class. And this professor, like once a year, all of a sudden, a bunch of naked dudes would run through his class and then run out. And his class, he kind of suspected after a while because, a lot of girls would show up that day and then run out. And some of them would get into an El Camino and drive back to the house. But I don't know who drove that El Camino. So anyway, I don't do naked. I wear clothes in the shower in case the mirror's not fogged up. So anyway, so we're definitely not talking about that because that's also a felony. Perhaps ponding. We could talk about ponding, the tradition of picking someone up and taking them and throwing them in the pond. Anyone here have ever been ponded? Right? Ponding's okay. We can talk about that. We might be able to talk about chaining people to the DG anchor because that's not, through the underwear with a bike lock, right? Anybody here been chained there? That's a decision you got to make, right? Do I stay here and get razzed or do I just make the naked run back to the house? Not me. Remember, no naked. We definitely don't want to talk about towering. And undergrads, Beckett, towering, once upon a time, was taking the outgoing president, bringing him to the top of Beatty Towers. It's just you and me, right, Beckett? Or just you and me, no one else is listening. Stripping him naked. No. And then putting him at the top, putting him in the elevator, and hitting all the buttons going down, and then having people, while you're doing that, knock on all the doors on all the floors below and bringing them out onto the landing. That's awful, and I hope they don't do that to him, because it's just terrible. So there, that one's over there. He's not going to see this. And so I also did, there's a judge in this state who may or may not have had that happen to him. So, but again, Nashville, you didn't hear that from me. So, omerta, Italian. And so I'm doing my hazing training, and oh, good Lord, we can't even ask you guys to clean up. We have a cleaning lady now. You can't make them clean up. Well, you could ask somebody. It's just reasonable. And really, we didn't do anything bad, did we? Right? Just improv games, So slave girls of Asia Minor, just just little things. But I did want to apologize to the guys from the 90s. There may have been a day, as I segue into my 90s thing, may have been a day where maybe some of us were sliding down the stairs on cookie sheets, and one person made a terrible decision and went down on a giant bowl, down the stairs. There might have been a fire. Want to apologize for that, but I don't know who started that fire. So I would just love to thank everyone here. I'd love to thank the guys from the 70s to give us all that support, who've been wonderful putting all this together. I'd like to, the support and the guidance from the guys from the 60s and 70s. I'd really like to make sure that we reach out to those brothers who are not here right now. We know who they are. And little sisters, I married a little sister. We know how close that we all were. These are family members. So let's make sure we get them reconnected. Let's keep strong our ties to the university. That's really what I want to end with. Let's find all of those guys that are not here right now, and let's make the 102nd a really, really big deal. Let's fill this place. And the last thing I have to say, that for me, I will do a personal note. For me, the 80s are defined by a practical joke that ran the entire 80s and did not end on me, the butt of this joke, until the early 90s. And the punchline to this joke is what has now become like a catchphrase. And I was coming back to the house looking for my then girlfriend, Tammy Thompson, who's now Tammy Thompson to Leonardo, and I found her at the top of the stairs, and I said, "Hey!" And she goes, "Hey, Iron Maiden pumps my nads." What? So that's it. Iron Maiden pumps my nads. I'm out. 2 minutes and 59 seconds, bitches.
It's okay. I think they just agreed to extend. They just agreed to extend our lease to 3 a.m. So we're.
We want Taylor! We want Taylor! We want Taylor!
So this is really cool. I was talking to Buddy Crescione about this. And remember this morning, yes, I was saying, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I didn't know that we had like Raymond Chandler, the guy who wrote Philip Marlowe. I didn't know Raymond Chandler was actually, a Phi Ton. He said, Jordan, no, it's Ryan Chandler. Ryan, so. Okay, Ryan, come on up. Talk to us about the 90s.
Damn, I wish I was funny. Jeez. That's a hell of an act to follow there. So we learned a little bit earlier about the 1926, and Calvin Coolidge was president, and apparently there weren't even radios to entertain anybody. Cars weren't on the scene, and so I've been asked to talk about the 90s, and just to introduce you a little bit to the 90s. You actually still had to talk to people. There was a telephone in the telephone booth downstairs, and God help you if you didn't answer it as a pledge before a brother did. We had a special way of showing affection for one another, and I haven't tested this with any of the guys, so we'll see if they'll back me up on this. But there's the confidential Phi Tau challenge, right? And then there's the Alpha Eta Phi Tau challenge, which is this way to show endearment, right? So let's see if they get this, right? Hey, everybody, Ryan Chandler's here.
Who gives a shit?
Exactly. And that's how you know you're home, right? So anyways, so being asked to talk about the 90s was a great honor. We talked about distinguished guests too, didn't we, at some point? There you go. Thank you, Quickie, right? And the reality is for the 90s, one thing that stood out to me is there is no way that any one person could be responsible for representing the 90s. So what I did, which was maybe a little bit dangerous, is I sent a little survey out to some of my brothers. And I got 9 responses, and I think only 2 of them had anything in there that could be shared tonight. So I'm going to do my best to relate what I can. And I did have a secret reason for doing that too, because if I'm sharing what everybody else reflected to me, anytime I hear nationals, I'm like, well, I can neither confirm nor deny anything, right, that these guys might have remembered about that time together. But so here's what struck me. I'm going to get a little bit more serious here. That when I asked them to describe the chapter in 3 words, here's some of the things that came out. Loyal, diverse, camaraderie, brotherhood, ambition, achievement, disparate, authentic, steadfast. Some of them were using a thesaurus, I can tell. And then one brother simply wrote this: Bad News Bears. Roy Harris, my pledge master, right? Yeah. I think we had to call them membership orientation officers as we were getting into that. Pledge master sounded, inappropriate or whatever. But
But I think Roy was probably the most accurate of everybody. Because back in the 90s, we weren't a chapter of men that looked alike or came from the same places. We were really a collection of guys from completely different backgrounds, and we really had no business becoming as close as we did. But we did. We became close. And I think that's what made the 90s really special. Another brother wrote that there were factions, which is kind of an interesting word, but thinking about it, it's true. We had the politicos, all right? We had the Beer Coalition. Any members of the Beer Coalition? Uh-huh. And we had something called the Lemonheads, and we're going to leave that aside. But the thing about it is there wasn't a lot of infighting in the 90s. The Beer Coalition could have cared less about student government or Florida Blue Key. But I'll tell you this much, when we needed them, they showed up. And you know what? If the Beer Coalition wanted to drink 100 beers in 72 hours, that was on them, right? Amen. Was that goal ever reached? I'm not sure. Does it even matter, right? Does it even matter? Everybody came out to support intramural sports. We had a pretty damn good program. Like we really did kick ass. Everybody had each other's backs, as brothers should, and that was a great lesson that we all got to learn together. So, some other things that came out of this survey that have to be a part of your memory. Everybody's already heard about being rung in. I don't know if they told you about the part beforehand where you sat in a room and plied yourself maybe with some type of libation to get hurled off the stairs, hoping to miss the light fixture on the top of the foyer, and then being lifted up in the air by the entire brotherhood, followed by the cheer. It was badass. It was absolutely badass. Playing Thed. Anybody remember Thed? Ah, all right. Some traditions still live on. Tauble. All right. Pizza and beer. We already heard about that one. Man, there were some good songs. I can't wait till we sing those songs a little bit later on tonight. Bourbon Street parties. Canoeing on the Santa Fe River. That was still around. Late nights at Phytaw East. Phytaw East residents. Uh-huh. Later in the 90s, it was the White House. We had one brother drive a street sweeper through a Taco Bell drive-thru, who may or may not be here tonight. Pledge class got arrested for stealing pumpkins by a cop on a bicycle. Man, that made it worse. And then there was that time, man, I'm glad this wasn't me. Our chapter president came home and found a beach party in the foyer where the Beer Coalition had set up plastic tarps about 6 feet up on the wall, complete with water and sand that they had trucked in from somewhere, beach balls, and a nearly empty keg, which was highly problematic for the time, particularly considering that a dean of students was about to come by to have dinner. Jay Roden, I'm glad I wasn't president then. Oh boy. And if you were at any of these events back then, you almost certainly have a story about one particular brother. Quickie. Oh boy. Later. Every single survey. Quickie. That's it. Every single survey mentioned that man right there. I'm not going to be able to go into all of the details because they may not be appropriate, but let me just tell you about a few. We had a time machine. Oh, we had a time machine. The time machine consisted of a janitor cart that would be rolled down the hallway upstairs, and it would send you to another dimension if you did not get out of the way. There was supposedly a New Orleans prison parish t-shirt souvenir, allegedly, that Quickie wore for a semester as a badge of honor for his experience in meeting New Orleans' finest. A moon pie box that he wore one time as his only article of clothing to a Bourbon Street party. And then this is one of my favorites. We tried to have some kind of order in our chapter meetings, and one time Quickie was being a bit quickie and was asked to be removed by the sergeant at arms, and he stripped naked to avoid Brian Zacher from ever being able to touch him. I think I'll leave that one at that. But so underneath all of that, and this came through in every single response, was something really real about the 90s. One brother, we've already heard about him, wrote about Dave Myers. And Dave Myers was the elder statesman of our fraternity. Dave could tell you more in how he looked at you than with any words. He really was a keel for the chapter, and even Jay Roden, I know, he took me out one time to sit on his porch and just reflect. And Dave Myers was something truly special to us in the 90s as well. I'm almost done. One thing that I'd really be neglecting, and this is very important because as a Gator in the 90s, right, that's when football finally came of age. Coach Spurrier in the 90s absolutely freaking violated defenses. One brother, when I asked what he'd love to relive for just one night, he said, beat Georgia in football. Back in our day, that was when we hung half 100 on them between the hedges. It was a beautiful time. 6 SEC championships, back-to-back national championship appearances. Warfel with the Heisman, 52-20 kicking FSU's butt in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah. But now finally wrapping it up, to all the active brothers in this room, I hope you hear something in this resonates that's more than Quickie getting arrested or anybody else getting arrested. Every generation probably thinks their era was the best, and you know, we're no different in the 90s. But when I asked the older guys what they hoped the active chapter was learning out of all of this, everybody said the same thing. Lifelong friendships, a sense of belonging, a home away from home, real friends, not just 4 years, but for life. I think one brother really captured it perfectly when he said, you get out of Phi Tau what you put into it. We gave it our all. Leave the place better than you found it. That's as good a charge as any of us can give you. And the last thought, I'll say is, as I think about quietly, I've just turned 50, and I think about my experiences in life, and very, very fortunate and feel very blessed. But I'll tell you, Phi Tau is at the top of my mind, not because of any of the things that we talked about, the fun stories or accomplishments or Blue Key or anything else. It really comes down to the people. It comes down for me to the people sitting at that table. They really shaped who I am. I think we shaped who one another were, and that made the 90s really special. And we kicked ass. Go Gators.
Now, folks, wasn't that better than a Raymond Chandler novel? Yes, absolutely was. Thing is, though, this last one is a little confusing because for the 2010s, we got this dude named Tom McGurk. And I said, but I know Tom McGurk, and I think chapter life must have been like really hard on him. Because look at him. I mean, he's got gray hair, and he looks like when he came to the University of Florida, we didn't even have history classes. We just had current events. I mean, the guy looks old. And they go, no, George, no. There's a second edition. There's another Tom McGurk not a junior, different middle names, but they're apparently a new and improved edition. And so, what's that? Iterate up. So, to hear about the 2010s from Tom McGurk, come on down. And let's see how he interprets the 3-minute rule.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to try to keep this concise because as long as we're comparing notes on the decades, the 10s still have plans after this.
I don't really think you're that old.
So when Pat first asked me to come up and represent the 10s, can you guys hear me now? All right. When Pat first asked me to come up and represent the 10s, I'll be honest, it was a little painful. I graduated in 22, and for a very long time, I have considered myself part of the 20s crew. And so being asked to represent the 10s, it felt like a bit of a gut punch. I felt like I was being aged a lot faster than I wanted. So I can't imagine how the rest of you feel. But the more I thought about it, the more it made perfect sense. When we graduate, it's when we leave this place, and we never leave this brotherhood. So why would we define ourselves by when we walked out the door instead of when we walked in? I remember distinctly when I walked into Phi Tau and when I arrived at this brotherhood. I was rushing. I came to the house, and as I walked up to the building, there were a bunch of brothers gathered on the front porch, and a fire truck sat on 2nd Ave. The kitchen had caught on fire. I was there for dinner, and they very quickly told me, hey, we're not going to actually be able to do dinner tonight. And instead, a bunch of brothers took myself and a couple rushies to Mother's, a couple blocks away, to get wings. And I don't know if it was because I was spared Chef Teddy's cooking, but something about it felt really right. It felt like home. And honestly, it was a perfect preview for how the next 4 years were going to go. It was a little bit of chaos, a lot of unpredictability, and way more visits from the fire department than I think any of us wanted. But through it all, we had fun. And most importantly, we had each other. That's the part that doesn't change. When I listen to your stories this evening, no matter the decade, it's striking how much has changed, but actually how little has changed. The parties have different names, the faces are new, the activities, for legal reasons, have evolved. The house got progressively worse for a while, and then for the new guys, got a lot better all of a sudden. But the core experience, the thing that shapes you into the men and brothers that you are today, remains the same. The same things that we lived in the 2010s were what you lived in the decades prior, and for our actives, it's the same thing that you're going through right now. I was on the other side of Pat's gut punch a few weeks ago, where about 15 of our brothers from the 2010s got together for St. Patrick's Day in Chicago. After perfectly predicting what one of our brothers was about to say when he walked into the bar 2 hours late, I said, "You shouldn't be that surprised. I've known you for 8 years at this point." The whole table winced. 8 years. Where did that time go? But when you find the right people, when you find your brothers, time doesn't feel long. It feels full and it flies by. And that's what this place does. It gives you people who make the years feel short. So as we celebrate 100 years of this chapter, my hope is simple. That this continues to be a place where new members walk in, maybe on a chaotic night where a kitchen has caught on fire, and feel like they've found home. A place where time flies by because of the people that you're with. A place where every once in a while you can stop, look around, and realize how far you've come. Because in the end, this brotherhood isn't about what decade you started in. It's about going far together. Cheers.
That was succinct. That was a real 3 minutes. You are going far, okay? I know that you are as interested and excited and fascinated to hear our keynote address as I am. And I'm telling you what I said after Matt's remarks.
These are exactly what we need to be hearing. So please stick around, stay focused. These guys have something great to share. Tom Freeman and Tom McGurk, our keynote address. Do you need both mics?
You're good here, thank you. So first of all, thank you all so much for being here and sharing your stories this weekend. It's like I've never left this place. It's been 15 years since I've been back, and it's as real today as it ever was. So I'm so happy for you to be here. You know, McGurk and I have spent the past few years thinking about what this place means to us. You know, as part of the Capital campaign, we probably had several hundred conversations with alumni at every stage of their life cycle. You know, we've thought about our own journey. What's it mean to us? And the genesis of this conversation really came together in Kauai about 3 months ago when McGurk and his family visited me. And the girls went to bed at a reasonable hour. We stayed up, finishing a nice bottle, talking, you know, asking a few questions of each other that you don't often say out loud. You know, questions like, we're a long time into this. You know, we've given a lot of money to this thing. What's it mean? Are we done? You know, do we pass this on to the next generation? You know, what do we want to get back out of this in another 10, 20, 30 years, as long as we're fortunate enough to be here? And between the two of us, I think over the course of that conversation, we got re-energized. And we found some truth in things we were talking about that we hadn't really fully articulated before. And I think we probably talked 2 hours, give or take. First thing in the morning, had a beautiful set of notes from it, because that's what McGurk does. And over the course of the next few weeks, we turned that set of notes into something I think really meaningful. But before we go into that, I want to share something else with you. Where's our little clicker? There we go. I don't know how well these little screens are going to work for us. We'll give it a try. All right, clicky, no worky. Anyway, what I was going to share with you there, and Gio, can you fix that for me? I don't know.
Try now.
There we go. We all said these words probably 100 times in our lives, you know, probably in some, I don't know, moldy parquet floor room with the stench of sweat around us with a lot of nervous guys standing around. And we, I don't know if I knew what it meant when I said it the first time. I certainly don't think I did. But there was one line that really stuck out for me over the years. It was this one. I shall be loyal to my college and chapter, and I shall keep strong my ties to them, that I may ever retain the spirit of youth. You know, the 100 or so of us alumni sitting around here 50 years later make those words come true. It's really what it's all about. And it doesn't mean write a check every year. It doesn't mean show up to every ball game. It doesn't mean be at every event. It means stay connected. You know, don't get lost. Don't go away. You know, and keep strong your ties. And tonight, that's what it's about. And we want to share a framework with you that really brought this to life and made it real for the two of us. And since McGurk's the architect of it, I'll turn it over to him to walk you through it.
Thanks, everybody. So we've been talking about the past. All tonight has been about the past, celebrating the last 100 years. What we wanted to end this with, and what we really came to mind, was the future. What we've got to do. So during the process of this capital campaign, all of us who were involved learned a lot about this brotherhood, and we started to notice patterns. There are patterns in the demographics of this brotherhood, and there are patterns that apply to all of us as human beings. Old guys, a lot of old guys around here contributing, getting involved, spending time and energy. A lot of young guys helping out. Kind of in the middle, we're losing them, right? The problem is, we noticed, and as we started to ask for money, we started to ask for time and investment, there's a lot of guys in that middle range who went away, and you go away because you've got a family and you've got a job and you're living somewhere else, but they never came back. I'm from a pledge class. We've talked about this, some of these transformational pledge classes. I'm from a pledge class of 21 guys from a house of 22. 22 guys in the house, 21 pledges. We're as close as people can be. I'm the only one here tonight. A lot of successful guys who aren't connected to us anymore. It's a tragedy. We've lost them. This is not about fundraising much as We've lost them, but they've lost us. They have small groups, they have friends, they made friends along the way, but they don't get this experience. They don't get to hear about the people who came before them. They don't get to hear about the history of the chapter. The people that we've lost, we feel like we've lost forever. What we wanted to do was talk about a framework that's really focused on the younger guys here. If they don't implement this thing, it's not going to work. But the idea is, let's make this easier for the guys who are doing this in 50 years. Let's set expectations. Let's talk about what brotherhood means to all of us through each stage of our lives, how we can be active, how we can apply the talents that we have, the time that we have, and the money we have to create a situation where we don't lose you, where the kids who come behind you, the kids who are in third grade right now, learn the same message. It becomes part of our culture. It becomes part of ITAW. And then we all get more out of it, right? We all miss, we look around this room and we all miss people who aren't here, who should be here. How do we can't fix that. We can't fix these guys. These guys are gone. They're still our friends. But from the perspective of the fraternity, we've lost them. Let's do better. The whole point about this framework is to set up a couple of approaches, some cultural issues, so that this doesn't happen anymore. So that you guys, when you're planning the 150th anniversary, have a group of guys who are active, connected. You haven't lost them. They're still here. They've done what they can. So I hope from an overall perspective, we're going to talk about one more thing at the end of this thing, but ultimately this is about time, talent, and money. And what we have at various stages of our lives, what we expect from you guys, the active chapter, as you age, as you get gray hair like this, and how you can pass that message on to the people who you're going to be educating, who are going to be in your hands as we go along. So, that's yours. Good. So the idea is we're brothers for life. 98% of us, some of us may have had a bad experience and we're never going to see him again. The rest of us intend to be brothers for life. What does that mean? You know, when you're in the chapter, you're creating these memories. We heard a lot of them today. When you leave the chapter, things start to change pretty quickly. When you're 23, like we've talked about this, when you're 23 and broke and full of energy, you know, we expect you to give a little bit of time, show up. Sit on the front porch, buy a case of beer. Remind them by the fact that you're there, that you're still connected. I'm watching the younger, better version of Thomas McGurk do that right now. He's 3 years out of college. He's still got relationships here. He's spending time with these guys. He's going out and drinking with them. This was so helpful for me. I was lucky enough to come to this chapter a lot when I was 23, 24, 25. I have friends over there from the 90s, Di Leonardo, 80s, yeah, Ebersbach, Napoleon, all these guys, Syracuse. I have friends from a younger generation because I was lucky enough to have a girlfriend in town and to come, who was a little sister, and I came up to Gainesville, Rosenberg, right? I met you because of that. We're friends now 40 years later. These are the kinds of things that as we talk about people who are just out of college, these are the things you can do to stay close to the chapter. These are the things that we encourage you guys to do. We know you don't have much money, but what we'd like you to do is think about your obligation to the chapter. Your obligation to the chapter when you're 23, 24, 25 years old, you're not married, you're living somewhere in Florida. Come by once a year, sit on the front porch, buy some beers, talk to the guys. Develop the friendships, you know, make a friend of a friend, that kind of thing that allows you to stay connected to a group of people that you wouldn't have met otherwise, right? Guys who were pledges when you were a senior. You don't know them very well, but and I'm describing the process that worked for me and that's worked for a lot of guys. Meet the younger guys, stay connected. That's all we ask of you. It's all we ask of you. We don't ask you to be on committees and that kind of thing. So what we're talking about is we've laid out the slide and you can't read it. But as I talked about here, we kind of say there's 5 stages of your career or your life as a FITAW. You have 3 different currencies like we've talked about it. When you're young, the second set of bars here, got a whole bunch of time. You know, you're not working that hard, or when you get to the middle, and again, if you look around this room, you don't see a lot of guys from that period of time, the 90s, the 2000s. They're busy. They have young kids. Their wives don't want to visit a fraternity house where they might stick to the floor, right? Our whole point here is to acknowledge this. These are natural parts of the cycle. It's okay, but you can do something, right? So as you see these bars, I can't even read them from here, but ultimately, you know, money goes from, you know, a little bit to none to we got more and more and more, right? I mean, the reason these old guys can contribute to this campaign is because we've reached a point in our careers where we can do this kind of thing. We can make choices about, you know, excess capital. We know you don't have that as a young guy. Money starts low, grows through the middle years, peaks in that establishment window, this third column here. And some of the most important giving we'll ever see at Alpha Eta will come from brothers in this room sitting in that window right now. Talent grows the whole way across, right? It's not that you're not intelligent. The kids at UF are a lot more intelligent than the kids were at UF when I was there. You have a lot of talent, but what you don't have is experience and wisdom of having been through it, have met new people, have created networks, being ultimately valuable at getting people together. It starts low, not because, like you said, you're not intelligent, but because by the back half of your career, you know a whole lot more. You know a lot more people, and you're a lot more valuable from the perspective of giving people something else, something you can't give when you're younger. We want to put that to work, right? As you think about your life cycle as a Phi-Tau, we want to think about talent the same way. Hey, listen, you're a taker when you're young, and we should be giving that to you. As you're older, you should be a giver, and that doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you time, it doesn't cost you money. No stage has all three. Every stage has something that's the design. As we walk through each one, kind of want to ask each of you, where am I right now? What does that mean for me? And I want the young guys to think about, hey, as I go through my idealized life and career, you know, what can I do for the house to stay connected? You want to flip forward to slide 5. So again, recent grad. Nobody can read this, but this one's for you. Active brothers here, this is what we're asking you to do is when you grow into and walk out that door. This stage has one job, which is basically don't disappear. We know what this phase feels like because, again, when I lived in Tampa, he was my roommate. New city, new job. Nothing stopping me from driving up to Gainesville every weekend to go to a football game, see the guys, see my friends, that kind of thing. So I did. Like I said, I visited the house, spent a lot of time here, had a pretty cool car at one point, had a dog, made a lot of friends. It was fantastic. Bought a few cases of beer, right? I remember what it's like to look in the couch cushions for enough money to buy a case of Busch Light around the corner. Like, I wasn't rich, but I had a job. And I could buy all the Busch Light I wanted to. So occasionally I would share that largesse with fraternity brothers, and look how it paid off, right? That's what we want you to think about as the young guys. We want you to understand that your obligation to this fraternity is to find a way to remain connected to the people in it, to be a presence, to talk to the guys, to have them see your face and to know your name, and tell the stories, because you certainly have a lot of them already. The brothers who disappear at this stage tend to stay gone. Not because they stop caring, not because they don't have friends here, not because they're not close with their pledge brothers, but, and it's really interesting. I've got 2 of my pledge brothers coming on a trip with me next week. They're not here. They're friends with each other. They have 2 or 3 friends from the chapter, but they're not connected to the house because they didn't have that experience I had post-graduation. They moved to Atlanta. They got married pretty quickly to people who weren't part of the UF community, and they're gone. They're gone. It's the point we want to make over and over again, that it's a loss for us, but it's a bigger loss for them. We don't want you guys to experience that, right? So the entire ask as a young brother, as a recent grad, call somebody, once a quarter, show up at one game a weekend, buy the guys a case of beer. Put $150 into the Century Club. It doesn't hurt that much. You're probably joining a company that has some sort of matching program. I can't tell you, and Jerry's been very good about this, but this whole Century Club thing and putting it in auto pay has been the greatest thing in the world. I think I've been doing it for 25 years, and every January I go, oh, I sent Phyton more money. I didn't mean to. I just gave him $50,000. I didn't mean to give him another, like Jerry wrote me a note. He said, did you really mean to give me another $1,000? Oh, it's the auto pay, right? It's a stupid mistake, but it's tax deductible, right? But it's a habit. It's a habit that compounds, that pays off, that your wife won't question it later in your life if you've been doing it every year. It's $150, right? Just set and forget, right? Young guys, get a job, auto pay, Century Club. Jerry will write you a handwritten note every single year. It's the greatest thing ever. So your presence and a little bit of money is your contribution, right? So we get to early career, right? Here's how we want you to think about being a Phyton as you get into your career. We call this, like I said, we call this a lost generation. We lose these guys. 5 to 15 years out, career's taking shape. Maybe you're married, maybe you've got kids, you've got a little bit of money, but you're spending it all on daycare and you just bought a new house, that type of thing. As the slide diplomatically notes, and again, you can't read it, your wife probably, isn't thrilled about, visiting a fraternity house full of people who ignore you when you get there, right? I mean, hey, you guys are fantastic, but the guys ahead of you, you'd walk in and they'd play beer pong. They just, you right past you. It's kind of terrible. So the idea is, hey, listen, we don't expect you to spend a whole lot of time in the house. You can't. You don't have time. But what you do have is you have some currency that's going to keep you connected to this place and it's going to make this place better, right? So anyway, as the slide diplomatically notes, the wife probably isn't excited about a weekend of undergrads and couch surfing. Ask us how we know.
Ask us how we know.
Yeah. So when Freeman was reaching out to brothers for the capital campaigns, the one that broke his heart a little bit were the ones were really big deal here. I mean, I can't imagine that guys that were presidents of this House who are that involved aren't here. We have a lot of them. We have a lot of them, and that just proves that no matter how dedicated you are while you're here, we can lose you. We can lose really important people. I can think of 10 presidents of the House who aren't here, who didn't answer any of our emails, who we couldn't get in touch with, and for all intents and purposes, they're gone. But remember, they lose more than we do. Let's not lose any more Phytos. Let's not lose any more people who thought this place was really important. As you get to the second phase, where we generally lose the most amount of people, let's find a way to keep you connected. So again, they've got a second kid on the way. They've got, their career is, they're looking to get promoted to vice president. They've got an aging parent that needs some help. They don't have a lot of money. They don't know anybody in the fraternity. Why would they be connected to this place? Well, they'd be connected to this place because it ends up here, right? So they shouldn't be disconnected. Neither should you. You guys need to think about this. The guys who are entering this phase, who are lucky enough to be here, and this is the definition of preaching to the choir, by the way, right? You guys are here. It's super, you guys are here. The guys who aren't here are the guys we really want to get the attention of, which is why we keep emphasizing over here. But here's what, Tom kept thinking during those calls. These guys need their brothers right now. Matt made the point that not only undergrads, not only young men need help and community, there's an epidemic of middle-aged guys who don't have any friends. They just don't have any friends. It happens. It's a reality of our society that if you lose this general community, if you lose that general connection to a big group of people who know you, who mean something to you, that's part of something bigger, you've lost something in your life. Your mental health is worse. Your physical health is worse. There's so much here that you lose if you get disconnected from the fraternity. Again, we're going back to let's try to not let this happen anymore. So one event per year. So as we talk about what we ask of you, as we think about this structure, one event per year. Make a call, once a year to a younger brother, somebody who's in your field. Give them a call, talk to them. Make some sort of connection. Don't lose the thread. When we've learned that when the thread breaks, in a lot of cases, it breaks forever.
I got this one. Yeah, I want to take this mid-career slide because it's a really personal story for me. And DiLeonardo alluded to it earlier in his comments. Mid-career for me meant moving to Seattle, taking a job with Microsoft, pretty big job, long way from Gainesville, definitely disconnected. But I remember one day I was sitting, minding my own business, and I got a phone call from my old roommate, Andy Colon. Andy was living in Cancun at the time. And he said, Freeman, something happened to me today. I was walking to lunch, I heard a song. Reminded me of Scott Lippman. So I went back to my office and sat down and Googled him and found his obituary. We got to do better. So over the course of about 4 years, he and I, DiLeonardo, a few others, stood up the proud to be an 80s Facebook page, Alpha Eta 80s Phi Tau Facebook page. And I think over the course of, let's call it 5 years, we became professional stalkers. And we found everybody who wanted to be found and some who didn't. But now today we got probably 500 photos up there. That thing's spinning off, ad hoc meetups all the time. There's probably some photos that can be shared in public, many that cannot, so it's a private page for a reason. But that 80s Phi Tau page has probably done more for the connectivity of our generation than anything we've done in terms of meetings, connections, or anything else. So I think the ask at this point is find new ways to stay connected. It may not be Facebook for everybody. New generations have new ways of keeping in touch, but keep in touch. And you'll be surprised what a gift it gives back. And I think it's been a huge learning for us. It's been a gift that just continues to give.
Yep. So again, as we talk about being established, how do you stay connected when you're kind of that 25 to 40? What expectations does the fraternity have of you? And your kids are in high school. They're not as intensive as they used to be. You've got a career that's fairly well established. This is when you start to do what we did, which is where you say, hey, how can I make this place better? What's missing? We've lost, you're all going to lose people around that period of time, unfortunately. What do we need to do to basically close arms and create a situation where the people who need us and the people we need hear from us? So it's a very much a stage of life. We're calling it established here. But again, you think about the Mike Browns, the Mike DiLeonardos, Jason, men at the peak of their careers, different careers, corporate, education, healthcare, they could be spending their time any way they wanted to. And you should be. So, but the point is, they've chosen to spend it here. They've chosen to spend it in places that make the world around them better. And they've drawn us all in. Tom's effort on Facebook has drawn a lot of people in who otherwise would have just been bystanders. It's an important effort. One of your brothers will do it. Maybe as you guys look at this period of your lives, you say, hey, listen, these things I'm starting to recognize, maybe I can do something just a little bit. Do a trip. Do something like that. Go to Gainesville with a buddy, right? So it's a lot easier to be ignored by kids playing beer pong when you've got a buddy with you, because at least you've got something to talk about. I also want to acknowledge Rob Hale, whose guidance in the early planning stages of this renovation helped get us off on the right foot. Rob applied his experience and his money and his talent to making this project something that went from, hey, we should do this, to, I think we can do this. And that's what draws people in, right? That little snowball starting to roll downhill started to pick up speed when Rob got involved. And then we started to bring in more and more people who made this thing really work. So ultimately, it's a phase in life. Again, we're talking about success stories, and we want you guys to be all success stories. So at this stage, think about the alumni board. Spend a little bit of time, on a Zoom call once a month, helping solve problems for the chapter involving recruitment or plumbing or whatever issues they've got going on. It's a pain in the ass, but it's also rewarding because you're giving back and you're giving them an example that makes them better people, right? It's not just your checkbook, it's your network, it's your Rolodex. So anyway, we get to the final stage, retired or legacy. 40 plus years, you've got a bunch of time. You're asking bigger questions. What mattered in my life? What lasted? What would I do differently? And again, that's why we're standing in front of you. We're thinking about what we could have done differently, where in our experiences with fraternity, we could have helped some people be here who wouldn't have otherwise. The brothers in this stage have given more to Alpha Eta than any other living generation. and a whole bunch of them are in the room tonight. You've heard from most of them. You know, Jerry Currington, of course, being a great example, Tom Corge, Marshall Gallup, John Barley, Ralph Paul, Andy Stein, Pat McGrath. List goes on. It's a group of guys who have modeled a fraternity experience for the guys in my stage of life, right? If I didn't have the example of all of these guys standing up and coming from the 60s and 70s who were there the whole time, we wouldn't necessarily have a very good template for what to do. And when we asked them for help, they jumped in. And it's been an amazing experience, and it's been very enriching, right? And that's the whole point. We give, but we get more. These men have been showing up for 50 years or more, through the good chapters and the difficult ones, through, again, the plumbing problems and the parquet floor problems and other problems. They've been giving back, and they haven't just been giving money, right? They've been giving time, and they've been giving advice that these kids couldn't get any other place. It's a way of modeling the world that they have been consistently demonstrating for us, and we want you to demonstrate for the people who come behind you. What we ask from you at this stage is the only thing you can give is your history. And we've got a lot of that tonight, right? Come back, tell stories, sit down with the actives. We don't have to do it in a formal setting, but the kids who are here, and I say kids reservedly, but the idea is that they're learning something that they wouldn't have gotten any other way. And it's because you guys have taken time to talk about what it was like in decades and eras they couldn't even imagine, right? So you're seeing how it works. We want you guys to be exemplars of this. The final quote that Tom wrote is a really good one. Your perspective isn't going to last forever. Give it now while you can, right? So the point is, that's the framework. We've kind of identified 5 stages of the people that we interacted with as we started to raise money for this process. It's pretty clear as we look about what you can offer, we talk about what you can offer, what you are offering, and people modeled for this, that no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are in life as a Phi Tau, you can make a difference. What we want you to think about is, let's make that difference. Let's make that commitment. It's beyond the creed, about keeping strong your ties to them. And the final point we wanted to make, because Tom's got a whole bunch of actual proposals here that we think are going to help carry this chapter into the future and make it stronger and more robust. But here's the point I want to make very clearly to the guys in the back of the room. If you guys don't take these slides or something like them and recite them in your senior speeches, and if you don't talk to the associates who come behind you and say, this is what we expect from you, then this 20 minutes will have been completely wasted. Because like I said, we're preaching to people who already live this. What we want you guys to do is to turn this into your culture. Because if you do, if you take the effort, if somebody in each senior class, if each outgoing president says, listen, here's what we want to do, here's what we expect from you, this is what I'm going to do when I leave this place and go out into the world. If we don't model that behavior, if you guys don't explicitly model that behavior, this learning is lost. And 50 years from now, when you guys decide to turn back to the fraternity and you try to find your old buddies and they're gone, maybe you'll remember what we're talking about. We don't want that to be the case. We want this to be a framework. And again, what Tom's talking about is, well, we want this framework that works for people. And we want this to make this chapter and this culture better. So anyway, that's the first part of our presentation. We'd love any kind of feedback you have along the way, but ultimately, thanks for letting us talk about it.
So I've got about 3 or 4 tangible things to talk about. Tom said he said a whole bunch. It's actually just a few things. Frameworks are cool, but now how do we make it real? And we're looking at each other across the room and saying, what are we going to do about it? We're doing things on, let's call it 3 to 4 levels right now. The Board of Governors right now is in the strongest shape it's been in historical memory. And I don't say that to be flattering. I say it because it's operationally true. We've got true generational range on the board right now. Everything from early graduates, recent graduates, to later career stage guys. We've got locational diversity, 3 guys here in Gainesville. I'm serving from as far away as Hawaii. So the Board of Governors is incredibly sound. We're doing a number of things with the chapter, and by the way, I want to commend Mike DiLeonardo, who's just signed up to chair the board locally. I would say, self-critically, we've been a group of grumpy old men in periods of time. I think you can see Mike is going to break that mold a little bit. So I think you'll be a great face and liaison to the chapter, and I'm very excited to have that local presence. Changing the culture of the undergraduate chapter is top of mind right now, and recruitment is number one. Guys, can I have your attention in the back, please? Recruitment is the lifeblood of this chapter, and it can be better right now, and I think that's all of our remit. Who do we know from high school that's coming to Gainesville next year? How can we help these kids connect? Who can host a party in your town this summer, to help with this upcoming rush? Fall rush is an existential opportunity for us, and we want to make that real. I think you guys have seen real progress this weekend in the way the house looks, the way you've been welcomed. I know I felt extremely comfortable in the house, met a lot of great guys, had a lot of great conversations. I'm really happy to be here and have this experience. I'm really happy to see the undergrads having the experience that many of us did not have, with a well-functioning chapter house, things that are working, good financial structure, and sound governance. So, kudos to the Board of Governors for making that happen over the last few years. It's been a lot of work. I think this one's yours, McGurk. This is an idea that Tom came up with, so I want him to talk through the framework. I think it's a really important one.
Is the Athenian?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the stereotypical relationship between alumni and active chapter is, why are you people bugging me? Why are you coming to my house? I just want to be left alone. It's really hard here. UF is a tough place to study. You got an active social life. Grumpy old men showing up in your house and telling you what to do is never terribly welcome. However, as we talked about, grumpy old men have something to add. There's a framework we ran into as one of my kids was doing some college visits that I attached to and I really like. So we want to propose this. We call this the Athenium. And the Athenium is basically what we want to do is we want to take a subject, we want to take some sort of alumnus who's really good at a certain thing, whether that's interviewing for jobs, getting internships, getting into medical school. We want to set up a dinner off-site somewhere. Let's go to Embers. Let's have 20 seats. We're going to send it to the house. We're going to say, hey, listen, we're going to buy you dinner. We're going to buy you drinks if you're of age. We're going to have a presentation, a short presentation. You're going to meet people in your career, in your field of interest. We're going to spend time. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to ask questions. We're going to create relationships, and then you're going to go home. It's not, hey, listen, we demand you guys come to some stupid training that we're giving. Completely voluntary. If you want to do it, come to it. If you don't want to do it, go do your thing. Trying to upend that grumpy old man telling young people what to do relationship. We want to create an opportunity where the younger kids can learn from the people who've been through these stages of their lives on a voluntary basis with a little bit of incentive tied in. Free steak and some drinks.
So the Athenium program is, let's call that the depth program. We have a couple of alumni coming in every semester sharing their deep thoughts. An idea that Jordan Kamaker surfaced that's a really good idea and one we're going to pilot in the fall, we're calling Brother to Brother. And what I've known in my last little bit is there's no real structured engagement model to connect alumni with undergraduates. So what we're proposing at this point is a mentorship program where, fairly simple, alumni complete a simple profile about their experience, their background, what they like to share, what they have to give back to the undergraduate chapter. Undergraduates similarly profile and say, this is where I'm stuck, this is what I'm needing, this is what I'm trying to go, this is the expertise I'd like to have access to. We run an algorithmic matching program in the September timeframe this year. And then the undergraduates and the alumni, a couple of times a semester, 2 minimum, connect on a Zoom call, face-to-face at a homecoming, have a coffee, and build that mentorship relationship. And then every September, we reset it. You have a chance to repick, to recalibrate, to find a new mentor. So tonight, we're officially asking for volunteers for this, for the alumni side. Reach out to anyone on the Board of Governors. Quickie, you're the first on the list. Thank you. We'll get the matching information out in the early fall time frame as soon as the guys get back to school, and we're going to run this in the fall. We'll see how it goes. We'll get smarter, we'll adjust it, we'll adapt, and we'll formalize it over the next little bit.
Oh, you got 21
So moving to the next topic on the National Foundation. You heard a little bit about this from Craig earlier tonight, but I want to just share with you guys a pattern, something we've noticed. Roughly every 20 years, the chapter reaches a crisis point. Deferred maintenance gets to a point where it's unsustainable, showers are falling through the floor, the kitchen stove is catching on fire, and we run a major capital campaign like we're in the middle of right now that basically is based on heroics. Handful of people, usually the same ones, show up, make the phone calls, solicit the money, get the work done, and then the cycle resets. We're going to break that cycle starting tonight. Craig told you a little bit about what we're doing with National in terms of the C7 and the C3. The work that Jerry Currington, I want to call Jerry out specifically on this, has been doing since before I was an undergraduate to run the Century Club. We're now going to run through the foundation. It's going to be systematic. It's going to be automatic to a degree. So as simple as Tom said, set up an auto pay, fire and forget. So the goal is, beginning in the next 5 years, we can spend $100,000 every summer to do the work we need to do. We've got a reserve fund that's healthy. We're no longer doing capital campaigns to fix a crisis. This is the end of a capital campaign and ideally the end of the last one. And that's the goal for the work we're doing with the foundation.
All right, so guys, we're going to wrap it up. It's been, like I said, been a long night. A pattern, a charge to the undergrads in terms of your culture and how you set expectations. 3 initiatives that are going to help us go into the next century of Phi better, stronger, financially and otherwise. Better connections, better resources for the undergrads, the right kind of focus. This is all part of, this isn't just us, this is the whole BOG, the whole team, everybody is we're all behind this. And again, the past has been fantastic, it's gotten us here. Let's have a better future. Let's do it in a very systematic way. Let's not just hope things are going to get better. We're very excited about all these initiatives. We're excited about all the help we're going to get from you guys to make them work. And we're excited to spend more time focusing on things that really matter here. So,
One last thing. My first boss in consulting said the best place to lead in front. So Jessica and I have had a chance to talk about this for a little bit now. What does Phi Tom mean to us? What has this chapter done for us over the last 40 years? It's resulted in at least one marriage where McGurk met his wife through my wedding. Yeah. D. Leonardo's been married for 40 years. At least one more wedding spun off from McGurk's. I mean, it's fundamentally shaped my life. And we talked a lot about what we want to do with the chapter going forward, and I think we came up with a plan that works for us. We're calling it the 10+5 program. So 10% of my capital campaign gift, $5,000 a year, will go to Phi Kappa annually in perpetuity, as long as I'm alive. Furthermore, the most untapped resource anywhere in our philanthropic universe is legacy giving. I was shocked to learn you can probably count the number of $1 million gifts to the Phi Kappa Foundation through legacy gifts on one hand. We're going to change that. We're going to change it multiple times. 5% of our estate will go to the Phi Kappa Foundation. I'm not suggesting that all of you do that. I'm not sure that's the right framework for you. What I would ask you to do is think about it. Opening your will is a pain. We're going to have to do it this summer anyway, so we're going to take care of that in the summertime. As you think about your estate plans, find a program that makes sense for you. This one makes sense for us, and if things go well, if we're continuing to be fortunate, Phi Tau will get a significant gift. If our fortunes go down, Phi Tau still gets something meaningful. So I think the only way to pay it from the front is to pay it forward. Thank you all so much for being here. I know it's late. Have a great rest of the weekend.
You got a lot of paintbrush there.
Folks, as you can see, that was worth waiting for. That was the most important message, not just for this group, but probably for the whole country. It's so important. All right, we're closing out. Just a reminder, we're going to do the drawing for the pin at the after party at the Hyatt. We'll do the drawing at the Hyatt. Look at the back of your program. There's so many people that deserve thanks. They are on here. And I also want to thank my buddy Pat McGrath for all of his incredible work. We're going to call John and James up here, but first, look around. You see the officer back there. You see the people with Pine and Palm. You see other folks here, and they've gone extra. Jesse, with Matt Pendleton's photography, they did such a great job. They're here overtime, and we're going to pay the bill. Now, the folks who went overtime, we egged them on. We loved every moment of it, so I'm not blaming anybody. It's on all of us because we had a great time. But we have to pay, so I'm urging you, if you've got a check, well, you don't have checkbooks anymore, but if you could cough up a little extra money for us to pay for the bills that are coming in the next 2 or 3 days, because they are coming in because we stayed late. We need every one of you to belly up to the bar and do that. Will you do it? Okay. Thank you so much. What? It has been an honor and a blessing to be part of this. I yield control to my neophyte brother, my pledged brother, my friend, John Barley.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. And I am last on the list tonight, so, and I will keep it short. I don't lie.
James up too.
James, where are you? James Cunningham. We've heard a lot about James tonight. I hope everybody's enjoyed the evening. I know I have, and the stories have been, some of them I've never heard before, and I thought I knew them all. We are by no means in comparison to the 90s. That's something different that I'm kind of glad I missed. Some 52 years ago, as a newly initiated brother, I was taught a song that started, "We are brothers now and ever, until the day we die." It ended with the words, "We'll meet again in heaven, sure, in the name of old Phi-Tau." As an 18-year-old, it was just another one of those fraternity songs I was required to learn, and the words really had very little meaning. 50-some years later, the song rings out with poignant memory and meaning, and I am reminded of the words on an all too frequent basis. If you would, please rise and join me in a moment of silence for the brothers and little sisters of the Laurel who are not able to join us tonight, but are smiling down on us from Chapter Eternal.
As we always did when we ended chapter meeting, we're going to sing the Brotherhood song. And it should be meaningful after 100 years, but it also in memory of our friends, our brothers who are not here tonight. We are brothers now and ever, until the day we die. And when the time comes rolling round, we'll bid our last goodbye. There is one thing sure and certain, let's bow our heads in awe. We'll meet again in heaven, sure, in the name of Phi Kappa Tau.
Everyone travel safe. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Be safe.